Welcome to KSOK Uncensored. Today's guest is a friend of mine, Paul Moore. Paul will be coming on shortly, but I want to introduce him. I met him while working on the Oregon gubernatorial circuit, and an amazing, amazing guy. So Paul has an announcement. He's going to tell us what he is working towards in his future, but I want to introduce him because he's achieved so much in life. And Paul is a husband, a father, a Marine. He was a former sheriff. He worked for the Oregon State Police. He's owned businesses, and now he is going to be putting his hat in, and I will let him explain to you guys what he is going to be working towards here. Come on in, Paul.
Hey, thank you, Kristen. It's an honor to be here, first of all, and I am running for Marion County Sheriff. And for folks who may not know, Marion County is the home of Salem, Oregon, which is our state capital in Oregon. And it's a strategic county for us. And I'm running as a constitutional sheriff. And people often ask what that is, and maybe we can talk more about that. But it's not a special position or a special kind of sheriff. It's just the mindset that all sheriffs should have. Every sheriff swears an oath on the Constitution to defend that document against all enemies, foreign and domestic. And I think sheriffs need to stand up and do that. They certainly have constitutional authority to do so. And many people have heard that the sheriff is, in fact, our last line of defense and can ensure the people's needs. So,
yeah, I am so glad that you are going to explain that, and that's how you're running as well, because a lot of people don't realize that the sheriff's role is nonpartisan for the most part. And so, and I've been heavily involved in, Clark County, Washington's sheriff race, and it's really difficult for voters to really understand where someone lies politically, because again, it's a nonpartisan role, so you don't really know what somebody has voted for historically. And so I love that you are a constitutional sheriff, because really people don't realize, they a lot of times will compare a sheriff to a police chief or something, but it's so different. The sheriff is elected, which is a
yes.
big difference, elected by the people, and therefore is responsible for ensuring the people's safety and that you're doing right by the people. But yes, if you could dive a little deeper into what a constitutional sheriff really is.
Yes, well, a constitutional sheriff is an individual that follows their oath of office, and they do the things that they swear to do. They honor their oath, and what that means. Excuse me. I'll give you one example. Day one, when I'm elected sheriff, we will issue concealed handgun permits at breakneck speed. And then my plan is not to charge people for that. I don't want to charge you for something that you have a right to do, but we're going to make it known to all chiefs of police, all heads of agencies, that we are not going to enforce concealed handgun restrictions in Marion County. And not only are we not going to, we're not going to allow anybody else to, because the government has no right to issue you a permit, in other words, or authorize you approval to exercise your constitutional rights. And it is a constitutional right to carry a gun to protect yourself. It says these rights shall not be infringed. So that's just one example of how a constitutional sheriff would stand up for the rights of people in their county. And there's many other examples we could dive into, some that are interesting. Election fraud is something that, election integrity is something that's on the minds of most Americans. And
Absolutely. I'll interject, Paul. I'll interject. I was just at CPAC, and they went around and did straw polls. And one of the polling questions was, what is the most important topic for you right now as an American? Number one, election integrity. So on that, go ahead.
Yes, indeed. It is a problem. And there's many deniers that will say that it doesn't exist. It certainly does. And, and you talked about a sheriff being nonpartisan, or not running as Republican, Democrat, or constitutionalist or anything else. And that's true. And the value of the county sheriff is, first of all, they swear an oath to uphold the Constitution. And secondly, they're elected by the people. Chiefs of police are appointed. Superintendent of the Oregon State Police is appointed. So you always
very political.
Yes, indeed, political, and they kind of carry I mean, who's going to appoint somebody that's opposed to their views? But a
Right.
county sheriff is elected by the people. And so you have to look after all individuals, all perspectives, all point of views. And our compass we use to do that is, in fact, the Constitution. And that focuses our attention on the right things. It's a guide, if you will, to teach us or to show us or direct us which direction we need to go. So the sheriff should speak up on all those issues to ensure the rights of the people in the county.
Absolutely. No, it's incredibly important, and people don't realize this. The other thing is that the sheriff can make the decision. You know this, but I think it's important for viewers to understand. Being involved in the Clark County Sheriff's race right now, there is a constitutional sheriff running, Ray Reynolds, and it is amazing how different when they're debating how different his answers are versus the other two, right? And so. Really, if there are unconstitutional laws passed, I know his stance is he's not going to enforce unconstitutional laws. And that ruffled the feathers of the other two. But where do you stand with how would you feel and what's your stance on if there was an unconstitutional law passed, which we're in the Northwest, we know that happens, would you enforce or would you stand strong against enforcing?
Well, Christian, I would take two stances on a law that was unconstitutional. First of all, I would not enforce that. I would not allow my deputies to enforce that or my posse members, and we should talk about posse members at some point. But not only would I not enforce that, I would not allow anybody else in my county to enforce that, be it state, federal, or local law enforcement, anybody. Because I've gone around the state of Oregon. I talked to sheriffs, and I full disclosure, I have to say that anybody that chooses a law enforcement career is a hero. So I'm in the difficult spot of running against another hero potentially, like myself. But
Yeah.
so I'm not going to sling mud. But when somebody doesn't do their job, I think we should comment on that. I think that's fair game. So I mean, I'm running because I think I can be a better sheriff. So no, I would not enforce any law that's not constitutional, nor would I allow anybody else to do that.
I love that. And it's so critical. And it's so easily, those words are so easily twisted too. What I've seen play out is, oh, you said you won't enforce a law that you don't agree with. No, no, no. It's if it's an unconstitutional law in the first place. So I think that is incredibly important that you have that stance. Going back to posse, I mean, there's the, let's talk about that, because I think when the majority of people think of a posse, they think of, yeah, me and my homies. Yeah, go ahead and explain to us what a posse is in your world.
Well, a sheriff's posse is a group of volunteers that do various functions. And I know, talking to people, my goal as Marion County Sheriff, if I'm elected, is that I will have a posse of 10,000 people who are volunteers that are willing to do various functions. One of the things that hamstrings sheriffs is they're not in control of the resources or the funds to do the things that they need to do. And that's a common thing that you hear sheriffs say is, I just don't have the funding. I don't have the people. I don't have the resources to do all this stuff. Well, that's where a posse can kind of hedge that, and that would be your fallback as a sheriff. So let's say you have somebody that is maybe retired or has extra time that would like to do administrative work or just do any manner of things. If you have a group of people like that, you can activate them. Let's say there's rioting in the streets and I didn't have enough deputies to cover that. I could flip a switch and activate however many posse members I needed to go out with sworn employees or sworn deputies to take care of that problem. So it gives sheriffs an opportunity to utilize local resources to get things done at very little or no cost to the folks in the county. So I will work very hard. And I personally believe that maybe the first year a sheriff's in office, that should be your primary function, is to not only do your job, but build that posse. And I've talked to many people that are very interested in doing that. And, so they join clubs and they volunteer time. Well, why not do that and turn that into something positive for the county? So imagine if there was 10,000 people in Marion County that were willing to plug in and train and do things it would be, I'd be hard pressed to believe that we couldn't get anything done we needed to do. And my heart goes out to these commissioners, these county people that have to make budget decisions, because they're hamstrung too, and resources are limited. A lot of it has to do with inappropriate allocation of funds, as we know in our government.
Bingo.
But still, not having funds or resources is not a real good excuse for a sheriff when they are required by Oregon law as well as the Constitution to take action if they need to.
Exactly. No, absolutely. I love that. And I love derivatives. I like to know where the term posse, I love that. And, a lot of people don't realize sheriffs have been around for 1,000 years. Like, this goes from like ancient England. Like, it's pretty amazing. So, and the sheriff's posse. So, okay, going back to your strategic plan, I really like that because it reminds me of the selective service. A lot of people don't realize, also known as the draft. But the selective service, they have hundreds of thousands of folks ready to go, right? And so I think that's incredibly important that as a county that you would operate the same way and just on a scaled down version. And also on that, another reason I love that idea is people don't realize how many people retire. This is especially men. A lot of men retire, and then you've probably heard of it. Bingo, they have a heart attack or a stroke. And a lot of it has to do with the fact that you have somebody who's been had a job, had this purpose for so many years, decades, and now there's this element of, what am I going to do with my time? Where's my purpose? And I think that what you're talking about gives that type of person a purpose and a place to volunteer and be with like-minded folks who want to secure their county. So I love that idea for so many reasons.
Well, absolutely. And when you think of the upside of having a program like that, think of the community. A greater part of law enforcement and the effectiveness of law enforcement is just a mere presence. We all know if we're speeding down the freeway and we see a cop, first thing we do is you look down and you generally adjust your speed. Excuse me. And so that's a common thing. We all experience that. Well, I have this theory that if you arm citizens and you have people in the community, posse members, and imagine with 10,000 posse members in Marion County has a population of 360 more or less thousand people, you're going to have posse members in every neighborhood. And anybody that has a nefarious intent is going to know that, and crime is going to go down. It's more eyes watching what's going on. It's people that are involved in the community, and the posse can do other things too. So just the mere presence of people that are paying attention is huge. And so there's so many upsides to doing that, getting people involved in the community. And you mentioned so many things, but the whole program is a good thing. And then you do have a force in readiness. We've had problems with wildland fires. That's been a huge issue. Well, it's nice if we have posse members that would be willing to train to assist if something like that happens, and we can activate them quickly. So it's not just retired people. It's people that are middle-aged, younger, that are working, that just say, I'd like to donate some time, 5-10 hours a week to help the community. And they're out there, believe me. And I think there's easily 10,000 people who are willing to do that.
I completely agree. So Marion County, I pulled some numbers last night. And so this is as of, I believe, February of 22. Looks like there's almost 79,000 folks living within Marion County. And so that's third largest in the state of Oregon, if not second largest. That's a big county. And so I think, to your point, there are absolutely people not only that want to protect where they live, but also people that really want something to do and want that sense of community. I feel like people want that now more than ever. And when you can achieve that sense of community along with doing something really to protect your families and where you reside, it's incredibly impactful. And so I am fully on board with you and your idea there. And I really look forward to seeing that fall into place, because then I can only imagine how many counties would model after that. Because again, that is how the selective service works. Like, you have people in place ready to go that have many functions, and you just utilize them for what they bring to the table. There needs to be a lot more of that. So thank you for thinking outside the box. And I think that that's what's so exciting about you is that I don't see you as that stamped out sheriff who's just going to be more of the same. I see you as someone who thinks outside the box and is okay to take some unorthodox approaches to the role to be successful.
Well, I agree with that, and along with that comes a certain amount of heat and
Hmm.
things that you have to throw on your shoulders. Perfect example of this is Mark Thielman's campaign for governor, and I'm not going to get into a lot of Mark things here, but he's my little brother and near and dear to my heart. But Mark did some things as a school superintendent outside of the box that benefited the children and the parents and the school district, and took a lot of heat for doing that. And folks, when they see things happening that are slightly different, or somebody takes a different approach, sometimes they question that, and they hash it over, and they want to look at it and stuff, which is fine. But there's a certain amount of heat that goes along with it. So we need sheriffs that have thick skin, that are not going to do what's politically expedient. They're going to do what's correct. I will not do the politically expedient thing. I will not be politically correct. I will be kind and loving and understanding and caring. I want to love all the people in my county, regardless of their political affiliation or anything else. But we have to stand for the Constitution. We have that guide to follow, and we need to do that. But yes, I believe that the posse concept and many others we can implement will work very well. But it does take somebody who is more interested in helping the people in the county and doing what's right than staying in office, than having a comfortable job, than holding down their desk waiting for retirement.
Yes, exactly. Okay, so on that, talk to us about what you plan to do regarding the homeless situation in Salem. It's nowhere near where Portland is, but I definitely see Salem on the news, and it looks like we have some spillover of Portland moving your way. So, what are your plans around homelessness?
Well, indeed, we do have spillover, and it's epidemic proportions everywhere you go. And so that's all wrapped up in is, I believe most people, the primary concern they have, talk about these other issues, they kind of bleed together, but is crime and safety. People want to feel safe. And that, if you look at Oregon Revised Statute 206101, it defines what a sheriff is by Oregon law. A sheriff is the chief executive officer in the county and conservator of the peace. Yes, you got it right there. And
I
I
do.
like that, because chief executive officer in the county is like, think of the sheriff as the president of your county. And the sheriff has ultimate authority. The sheriff is the only elected official in the state of Oregon that can actually arrest the governor. And so the sheriff has immense, but I like
Yes.
when they tie in the conservator of the peace, because that's kind of a thing. You wouldn't think they go together, but they do. So what I look at that, it's kind of like know your authority well, but use it wisely. In layman's
Right.
terms, I could say just because you're speeding, you don't always need a ticket. Sometimes a warning will suffice. So you do the right thing. When you talk about the homeless issue, there are a lot of crime and safety issues that are wrapped up inside that we need to fix. And
Yes.
I could take heat for saying this, but I'm going to say it anyway. You know, give me 2 sworn deputies, 30 posse members, a dump truck, and a front loader, and I'll fix all your homeless problems. And
I love that.
to a certain extent, that's true. But we are kind and loving as Americans, and we want to help people that need help and want help. So there is a segment of the homeless community that need help and want help. Well, there's facilities like Bayview Lakes in Portland, and I could go down a long list of facilities that we would refer people to, and we would help them if they want help. But if they're going to go live on the streets, pollute our streets, do their drugs, basically enable a crime culture, there is sex trafficking, human trafficking, all kinds of crime, drug, everything you can imagine in these homeless communities. And they're not safe. They're not safe, and they're not sanitary. Anybody
Right.
that lives in that kind of condition, that's not human. That's not decent to allow people to live in those kind of environments. So we have to fix
Right.
that. And we do that by enforcing the laws that are on the books, by taking it serious and holding people accountable. What has happened in Oregon and probably other states is the whole homeless thing has created a microeconomy where millions and millions of dollars are spent on this issue. But what happens is we hire people that are appointed to run programs and do different things, and the money seems to never make its way down to the street to help this problem. So you have to take a hard line as a sheriff, and you have to say, we're going to clean this up because nobody in my county is going to live with needles in their park, with drugs going on, with human and sex trafficking going on, with criminals preying on homeless people. We've got to fix this problem, and we can fix this. Give me a posse that I can use, and we can go out and we can address these problems, because there are ample resources to help people that want help. If they don't want help, I got a place for them in the county jail, and they're not going to sit there and watch TV. And that's another issue too, is the Constitution of Oregon requires if somebody is incarcerated, they take the same responsibility for their upkeep and their food and their housing that your average citizen does. They shouldn't just sit there and have taxpayers fund their incarceration. That's another thing we need to address. So as you can see, if I'm elected, I'll be extremely busy.
Yes, you will. And I just want to say, for you, you probably don't know this, and a lot of people watching don't know this, but so my sister, she's my little sister, 5 years younger than me, and she had a decade of drug addiction. And, she was in and out of jail, but finally the judge threw the book at her, and she was in for almost 3 years. And that is why she is clean and sober today for almost 6 years. And she was very active when she was in. And she says, if I wasn't arrested for, and not talking about one night, 2 nights, she's like, if I wasn't arrested and actually sentenced to this lengthy sentence, I would not be living, who knows, I'd probably be dead, right? Like, she is clean and sober. She has a great job. She's been promoted 3 times. I mean, married, like, she's just on the right path. And I really don't feel, and she feels strongly, that she wouldn't be successful today if it wasn't for, finally having a judge throw the book at her, right? And so I think it's really important that people realize, I've heard plenty of people say you can't arrest your way out of homelessness, or we can't arrest our way out of drug addiction. But you know what? I mean, I know of plenty where when you actually hold them accountable and put them in jail, and to your point, she was like the cook while she was in jail. She made sure to stay busy once she was in there. Everyone where she went had a function, and that is incredibly important to success when you get out. And so I am not opposed whatsoever to really putting folks in to get clean and sober. We need to get them off the streets. We're letting them die a slow death on the streets, and enough's enough.
Indeed, it's inhumane the way that we allow our fellow citizens to live in these homeless camps and such. And it can be addressed, but it's not going to be addressed with a bunch of bureaucrats that take their fat salaries and run programs. It's going to take boots on the streets to do something, and we can do something. And if you get back to the whole posse concept, I think a lot of people get involved in drugs. They get involved in nefarious things, crime and whatnot, because they just don't have anything to do. And we can give people a place to have something to do and pride in what they're doing with the posse concept. We can have a junior posse. Think of what a bunch of kids could do. And, so the sheriff has to think outside of the box. And one story I can relay, and I love this story, is I was speaking at a function one time, and a gentleman came up to me afterwards and said, "Man, I wish you were running for sheriff in my county, because I'd vote for you. But I do have a question." We asked our sheriff, and he really couldn't answer it for us. So I'm going to ask you and see what you come up with. So I said, "Well, what's the deal? Tee it up, and I'll do my best." And he said, "Well, my wife and I are very concerned about these drag queens going into schools and doing story time with the kids, because that whole counterculture thing doesn't embody what we believe children should be exposed to. Because we all know that there's a sexual pornographic thing to the whole drag queen thing. Now, I'm not slamming them at all, but what I'm saying is I don't think that children should be exposed to that."
Right.
So he said, "As sheriff, how would you deal with that?" And I said, "Well, the first thing I do if I found out that was going on in a grade school in my county, or any school for that matter, I would show up at the principal's office the next day with storybooks under my arm in full uniform. And I'd tell the principal, the next time they do story time, I'd like to do it as county sheriff. Because I look
I
back
love
to when I
that.
was a child, and think about this. If you're going to the library for story time, would you rather have a drag queen or the county sheriff that's going to hand out badges and junior posse stuff and all that cool stuff? And I think so there, we all know what happens when good people don't step up. The bad
Right.
people will fill in the gaps. So, we need to step up as good people, as citizens. And that's just one example. Another I could give you is, how about the violence we see in schools, the gun violence. And I hate to say gun violence, because most of the time when people talk about gun violence, they're talking about gun control. You
Right.
don't get anywhere by restricting lawful citizens' rights to try to fight crime. It never works. And so how many deputies? I think there's 300 and some odd people that are employees of the Marion County Sheriff's Office. Not all are sworn deputies. They probably have 60 or 70 sworn deputies. Out of that 60 or 70, I would bet that a lot of those people are middle-aged and have children in schools. What if I told the deputies, take time when you're out on patrol, take time on company time as you're out there working, and visit your kid's school. Talk to the teachers, walk around, make sure the proper doors are locked and everything's secured, and show up at random times and be seen. Remember the deterrent factor and all those things.
Yeah.
Another thing we could do, and if my kid was in a school, and I did that as an Oregon State Trooper, I visited my son in the first grade, and he loved it, and the other kids loved it. They got to look at my motorcycle. It was fun for me too. But those things make a difference. We don't
Yes, they
necessarily
do.
need an officer assigned to a school that's taking
Right.
all those resources, but we can handle these things in a different way if we're smart people. Come on, we can solve these problems, and we can do the right thing. It just takes somebody willing, like I said, to take the heat when change happens.
Exactly. Exactly. Well, I love what you're running on, Paul. And again, it's been an absolute pleasure meeting you over this last year, and I see a bright future for you. Tell everyone watching where they can find you and how they can support you.
Well, you can go to my website, which is more4mcsheriff.com. It's on the screen here. And you can click to join my posse. You can click to donate. And we will get back to you. We're going to be starting a newsletter. I want everybody to understand my race is in 2024. So we're early to the party, but I believe it's important. And we have a lot of things to address. So early is fine as far as I'm concerned. We'll dive in with both feet and swim like crazy because there's gators nipping at our heels the whole way. But we're going to do this thing. We do need financial support. And I'll mention this also. We need people's prayers and throw us your mojo, however you do it. But that's a big thing. We're already taking heat. And as you do when you're over the target and doing the right thing. So we can make a difference. And so much of the important stuff I think people will discover in the next few years it's local stuff that you're doing that's so critical. And the sheriff is, in fact, the last line of defense, and the sheriff can stand in the gap for you so long as they're willing to do that.
Yes, absolutely. Amen. And yes, prayers and offering time and donations. I think that's critical. People don't realize grassroots means they're not bought and paid for. They need support. All right. Well, thank you so much, Paul. I appreciate you coming on, and I look forward to seeing you at one of your events.
You betcha. It was an honor. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Take care. All right. Thank you guys very much for tuning in to KSOK Uncensored every Thursday, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 Eastern. We'll see you next week.
Joe Mobley, your host and the original Uncloseted Conservative. Guys, thanks so much for being a listener, a watcher, however you're consuming this. Media rock star, a patriot, a police wife, and host of the Elsa Curt Show. That might have revealed it for you. We've got Elsa Curt on today's show. We're going to be talking about, well, whatever we feel like talking about, because it's Friday and it's my show, and that's how we roll, guys. All that and more, and it all starts right now. Elsa,
well,
how are you?
hello there. Good to see you. Thanks so much for having me on. I'm excited.
Of course. So this is super weird because I've got like your face on all of the monitors here.
I'm sorry.
So it's just like, like
nobody needs to see that much of me.
I need to try and. So, guys, the website is not on this page. It's on this page. It's elsacurt.com. Make sure you go there. Follow her all over the interwebs. The funniest place for me is TikTok because it's kind of her thing if you're unaware. But yeah, so go to elsacurt.com. People, I blame the Department of Education. We have like a real epidemic of poor spellers, so I'll spell it for you. It's super hard, folks. Elsa is ELSA, and Curt is KURT. elsacurt.com. Go to the website. It's also linked below. So if you just totally can't spell, then right below our little floating talking faces, you can just click it at the press of a button. And of course, next week, guys listening on podcast, after you rate and review the show, because we love that, go ahead and subscribe to Elsa's podcast. It's going to be linked. You just have to press it's a touch screen, guy. You just press the button. Couldn't be any easier. So Elsa, how are you? How are you doing?
I am great. Thank you. I love how easy you make it for everyone. We are in a, simplicity is a must society now. So you make that, you make it so. That's so awesome. But yeah, I'm doing great. How are you?
See, you're very gracious because she's saying make it simple, but it's really because people have gotten dumber. And I hate to say this, but, I've been plagued by it, and even people that listen to our shows, I was listening to something the other day, and it was like, do you realize that we've stopped pronouncing T's? And I said a couple words, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't use whatever propaganda campaign they ran to get us to stop saying T has worked.
It's worked. So many of their tactics have worked, and even for the most awake person, not that other word, it seeps into our vocabulary, into our existence, into our thought patterns. It's diabolically brilliant of them to do what they've done. And yes, our attention spans are, it's bad when, and I don't know if you've noticed this, but when you are scrolling through social media, for example, and it shows you that there's an article that you might want to read, it tells you how long it'll take you to read it.
Yeah.
So people look at it and they go, oh, it's going to take me 3 minutes to read that. Oh, that's too long. I can't do it. That's where we're at.
Man, it's a real writing for anyone that writes op-eds. And I encourage you to, just like a big part of my show is it used to be coming out of the conservative closet. Now it's really coming out of whatever closet you're in. And there's a relative of mine. She's a Democrat. But she's also very patriotic, and she's in the closet about being pro-gun because it's unacceptable to her leftist colleagues, and she lives in California. But she's got AR-15s in every room in the house. Her kids know how to use them. They know it's for killing bad guys and, slaying governments, not for like plinking or whatever. But anyway, a huge part of that, of coming out of whatever closet you're in, is being in the public square, and an awesome way to do that is to write op-eds, especially like all of your little local papers. Maybe you start a blog, but it's weird, but op-eds are still kind of important. And if you set out to write one and you're like, okay, I have this 2 or 3 minute kind of cap because then no one will read it, it really turns into a creative writing assignment like real quick.
Yes.
So yeah.
That's so true. That's so true. Yeah, that, I love that. That's a great bright side to it, that, it does make you a more succinct writer for sure, that, you have to get your information in as few words as possible, whether it's writing or speaking, really, right? Like get your point across as fast as you can. And for somebody like me who is by nature, thanks Dad, very wordy, it's been a great learning experience to, learn to shut up more.
Oh yeah, same here. I'm terrible. It's funny because I'm a podcaster, but I'm terrible at asking questions. I'm a student of broadcast, I say. So I'm trying to get better at asking questions. And here, you'll be the beneficiary of that, because I'm learning about talk about questions, which is just, talk about, and then fill in the blank,
Mm-hmm.
and then kind of get out of there. Joe Rogan does a great job of this. Jamie Foxx is actually the master of talk about questions and when he's interviewing people. And he's also just incredibly funny. So maybe I'll be Jamie Foxx when I grow up.
Nice. I like that. Yeah, I do. I spend a fair amount of time, or at least try to spend a fair amount of time watching the pros, because I'm in the same boat. You know, I'm actually in my personal life, in my private life, I'm not a big communicator. And, you know, so of course that makes perfect sense that I would choose a lane, an avenue where you're talking and listening so much, because, you know,
Yeah.
bizarre, but this is the things that we do, or at least that I do. And so it has been for me as well quite a lesson in learning how to have those types of dialogues with people, and sitting back and listening and giving them the space to do that. So yeah, I'm right there with you on that.
Do you have this thing that I have as a law enforcement spouse? I'm guessing so. But so my career was law enforcement, military. I did intelligence for a time. I've always been that security person, so I'm intensely private. So it was hugely uncomfortable for me I was off social media except for LinkedIn, to start a podcast and everything that comes with it. Like I'm just an intensely private, like Ron Swanson type dude, and super uncomfortable.
Yes.
Because I'm like, I want to be like that nameless, faceless person, but you know, the collapse of the republic and all, and the economy's burning down to the ground. So I figure these are sacrifices that we have to make.
Yes, exactly. I love the way you just said that. Yeah, that's so true, and highly, highly relatable, you know, in my regular life, as we call it. You know, I mean, 10 minutes ago, I was just dragging the garbage barrel up the driveway. You know what I mean? Like, it's such regular life. So when somebody does say something, usually for me, because I'm a bit of a recluse and I don't do a lot of appearances, I do a handful here and there.
Are you an introvert?
I'm a wicked introvert.
Whoa,
yes.
wow.
Yes.
See?
After this, I will decompress for like an hour. I'll put on like my warm, fuzzy clothes and like, you know. Yeah.
I have on my warm, fuzzy My Pillow slippers that are a sponsor of the show. MyPillow.com, promo code Mobley.
I love that. Well done. Well done. I like that a lot. And they do look so cozy. I love that. But yeah, absolutely. Total introvert. And you just, and I'm sure you know it too, you just kind of flip the switch, so to speak, you know, when you're on air personality, which is not to say it's not real. This is truly, you know, everything I do, whether it's the TikTok videos or the Elsa Curt show or author events, all of those things, you're getting real me. Like, this is me. This is just the version that you're getting of me is a different version than the one my husband gets or my kids get, you know, and we all do that. We're all, there's different, we're multifaceted, you know, or if we're like Shrek, you know, we have lots of layers. We're like an onion. But yeah, no, that has been an adjustment, more so probably for my husband than me, because we have lived a very private life. We don't really have any law enforcement identifiers on our persons when we go out. You know, I laugh, some people in law enforcement way back, not anymore, I haven't seen it happen, but I'm not wearing one today, but a lot of times I'll wear a thin blue line baseball cap or some type of clothing or something on air or in a video, and you know, somebody will, you know, take not offense to it, but get a little mad about it and say, oh, you shouldn't be wearing, you know, stuff that identifies you, you know, you're making yourself a target and blah blah blah. And you know, I have a couple answers to that. First of all, honey, I carry, so come and get it. You know, that's one answer. And two, I don't typically wear this stuff out, and not because I'm not proud of it, but because I don't, for my husband's sake, you know, I try not to broadcast it too much, because he'll worry, you know, he'll be worried about, he already worries, you know, he worries about my safety and all of those things with my big fat mouth running all the time. But the flip side of that is, if we don't, Joe, you know, if we don't, who will? So we have to be the people who speak up and encourage other people to speak up and stand for what's right. And this country, really, I mean, everything that you're saying, everything that you stand for is well. Tyranny, all of those things, the quiet people need to find their voices. And, you know, I was one of those quiet people, and not anymore.
I always tell, I have a lot of the usually out in public, The most controversial thing that I wear, I'm usually wearing my bright red, shiny, MAGA hat. And I say MAGA, which triggers a lot of people because it's MAGA. I know, folks. It's fine. I can do what I want. Yeah,
okay.
so I say MAGA. I say MAGA on like 1 or 2 programs because I know that the host, like if I'm doing something for someone else. But usually out in public, I'm kind of, stripped down, absent of indicators. Some people are like, I was in the Army for 11 years, but I don't have any tattoos. So some people are like, if you were in the Army and you don't have any tattoos, were you ever really in the Army? So typically, unless someone is like us and they do those scans, I'm always looking at hands and waist. If you want to harm me, 99.9% of times you got to use your hands unless you've got some kind of poison or something. If that's you, then you earned it, okay? You deserve it.
Yeah. I mean, that's initiative right there.
Yeah. But, I do that quick waist and hands. But so basically the indicator that's usually on me is one of the memorial bracelets that I'll wear. And it's whatever. But I tell people, like, you probably have this moment too. I will speak in the public square or wear the stupid hat, which, by the way, for you Christians out there, my MAGA hat starts more conversations that lead to, the problem of evil, that lead to the cross, that lead to me having a conversation about the gospel with a total stranger because they were so outraged at the hat. That's why I wear it. So newsflash. But I'll do that. And like today, I've got the back of this shirt is I'm wearing open. I'm wearing this one today, which of course just triggers people immediately with the calibers all faster than dialing 911, which is true, folks, much faster than dialing 911. Law enforcement's great, but a lot of times the capacity is just keeping a really well-organized document of what went down before they were there. So,
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. But we'll do the podcast and be uncomfortable to avoid this, the Christmas Eve, sailing across the frozen river to go engage in warfare. That's a solid trade, podcasting and friends, family, or fans. Just know the worst thing you could send us is like a video of ourselves speaking. That's just like the worst. It's the worst.
It's the worst. It's so cringe to use if my kids who are adults, if they heard me say the word cringe, they would have cringed, but I couldn't help myself. I like that one.
Have you experienced this one? I listen to podcasts and fast forward. I do, except for Ben Shapiro, to save time. But I've never considered myself that way. So I walked downstairs, several months ago. My wife is listening to me on like 2x speed. It was nuts. Like, I was like, oh my gosh.
That's so funny. I avoid asking friends and family members if they ever watch my stuff, mainly because I don't want to know the answer. I don't want to know if they watch it, and I don't want to know if they don't watch it, because I'm either going to be embarrassed or hurt. So there's no win. Like, there's no winning. But people will reach out, like friends, a friend of mine who lived in my state but moved away. She just told me recently, she's like, I listen to your podcast, every day. I was like, what? I don't even know how to react to that.
This is the inside scoop, guys. Like, we don't know what to do or say. A friend of mine that I go to church with, who's an elder, was saying the other day, and it's funny because like we're saying this and you all will listen, like that he listened to me on a road trip, like all the way, several states out and back. And it's just like, well, what do you say? Like, oh, what did I say? What episodes? I'm thinking about like, oh, I hope I didn't drop it. Because like every couple of episodes, especially if I'm particularly upset about something, there'll be some profanity. Sometimes. Sorry, guys. It's okay. They're just like, goodness gracious, no Christian could ever use that word.
I have been internet reprimanded for my propensity for curse words. Yeah, somebody commented on a video on YouTube, and they're like, I really like, the gist of it is like, I really like you, but I'm trying to understand why you feel the need to use curse words or swear in your videos. What does that do for you or your video? I'm like, my response was, well, surely you don't expect a grown woman of a certain age to feel the need to explain herself or justify herself to a stranger on the internet. That's just silly to me. Like, I don't answer to you. You're not paying my bills. You're not my employer. That you would actually think that I should answer to you in that way. Like, don't watch the show. I'm sorry that swearing offends you, but
thank you.
Right?
Don't subscribe.
Yeah, just, I mean, I would love for you to.
If it's not your bag, then don't listen, folks.
Yeah. And I actually told him, I said, I would love for you to stay on and keep watching my videos, but if this isn't your cup of tea, that's a choice you have to make, and I'm okay with that, but to expect that I would explain myself to you is just, that's silly to me.
If you have to ask, kind of thing.
Right. Yeah, exactly. That to even ask the question is bizarre to me, and I think that's like the thing that has been quite an eye-opener in this whole social media life experience, that, wow, people will just say things to you that maybe these same people would say it to you in person, because you said you had some that said stuff to you in person. But generally, the case is like they say things to you on the internet that they wouldn't say to you in person and in real life.
Keyboard warriors, yes.
Right? Keyboard warriors, man. Oh, they are something special. They really are. And, and then they get mad and upset when you respond, when you come back at them with, equal or more force. And, that to me is like, well, what did you expect was going to happen? Like, did you think because you said that I'm stupid or a dumb blonde or I don't know what I'm talking about, did you think I was just going to delete my account and go away because you didn't like it? No, I'm coming for you. Most of the time, in fairness, I used to go tit for tat a lot back a while back, early on. And now I'd say about like 97% of the time, I don't respond or react to any. I just keep scrolling, because I think, there are a lot of times where the best response is no response. Don't value their stupidity really with a response, because that's what they want. They want a response. They want a reaction. But occasionally, I can't help myself, and I have to pull out the claws.
It's so interesting. You're exactly right. Like, people who aren't into TikTok probably don't know. Like, TikTok is a lot like Twitter with the keyboard warriors. Because Twitter, I'm still on Twitter. My second biggest following is on Twitter. And you get a lot of trolls, basically.
Yeah.
And so a lot of my audience doesn't TikTok. They're not on TikTok, whatever. But something they probably don't know is like it's very Twitter-esque in the things that people are willing to say to you and leave in the comments of your videos. And I like kind of famously remember I joined Twitter. I put up an account. It just says Joe Mobley. There's nothing on it. No picture, no nothing. And while I'm like waiting to launch, what's Twitter going to be like? My blank profile gets like, you suck, like comments and stuff. And it's like basically whatever your number of followers are, it's just like a multiple of hate talk that you get. Like, and some of it's really entertaining. I'll just be honest. Some of it's hilarious.
It's funny. It's really funny. Like, it's almost guaranteed that whoever leaves a nasty comment, it's almost guaranteed that they will have the most atrocious grammar and spelling. They can't spell what they're trying to say, and those are the ones I actually have a blast with, and a lot of TikTokers do as well. Like, if you're gonna come for me, right? If you're gonna come for me, at least be able to communicate clearly. Like, I try and be concise with my language. I don't always succeed, but at least I try. So, if you're going to come and attack me, on the basis of my looks or my beliefs or my opinions, or just for the fact that I exist, at least spell it properly for God's sake, man.
It's really funny. I like to, this is very popular on TikTok. I haven't done one of these TikToks where you like read people's comments or whatever, but I love to retweet them. I should do a TikTok like that because, you know, it's a comment and it might get a dozen or so. But if you like retweet it, if you put it out on TikTok, then it's going to get some real eyeballs on it. Mm-hmm. And I usually embarrass, like that's my go-to move now because it's usually like embarrassing. That. They get a lot of attention on their account that they don't want to get.
Yeah.
And guys, you always do this to yourselves. I don't leave comments like that on anyone's social media. If I feel so moved about something, I will send an email and expect it to go straight in the trash.
Right.
Yeah,
same. I'm right there with you. You know, if anyone, and you could, anybody, I don't know how they would do this, but they're more than welcome to try if they're so inclined. You could go find every single comment I've ever left on a video, and it is always positive, always encouraging, always kind, and which is not to say that I love every single video that I watch. It just goes to say that I'm not leaving anything negative for anyone. And if I don't like something, if I don't like a video, I simply don't watch it and I send it away. I'll you know, just I forget what it is. I think you like hold the screen and just put not interested or something like that. So if it doesn't interest me and I don't like it and I don't agree with it.
I didn't even know you could do that.
Yeah.
I'm the worst millennial in the world, by the way. Like, I'm terrible at the internet.
I'm pretty impressive for an old broad with this technology stuff. I'm better at it than my kids who are 29 and 25, and they're like, Mom, I can't even deal with this stuff. So
are you from the Northeast?
Yeah.
By chance. Yeah, I haven't heard someone say old broad said that I hadn't been related to like in a long time. I claim Virginia, but it's a secret that I'm actually from Long Island. But I mean, I'm a Virginia boy. I grew up here. Yeah, we moved. I was a kid when we moved. So you know, while we're teetering on pissing people off, while doing the interview prep, I don't watch all of your videos. No one could. You post a lot of videos, and they're great.
Too many videos. I don't watch my videos.
Yeah. Oh, that's funny because I used to listen to every podcast. I used to be once a week. Yeah, but there's just too much content for me to re-listen. But anyway, I do interview prep, so I watched a bunch of your content, and you posted one that I think is pretty spicy, but I don't think that you thought it was going to be spicy.
I don't know which one. I'm like,
and I don't think that it's spicy either, but it's kind of like the mental health one. So the other day, and I'm not going to pull it up because it's always a huge pain in the butt to play TikTok videos on desktop into StreamYard. Is just,
gotcha.
Again, worst millennial. But you guys should go and watch it. It's the other Elsa on TikTok. And you said something that was very Allie Beth Stuckey. But there's that attitude, you know, I'm enough, I'm this, I'm that, and then I'm okay with whatever. And you said, like, hey, if you're not okay, that's not okay. You're kind of supposed to be treating that or trying to get back to center or whatever. And right. I can imagine that you got a lot of unsavory messages.
Yeah, I got some flack for that. And yes, I finally do remember which one you're referring to. I said, you know, so there's that saying that is very popular these days, which is, it's okay to not be okay. And I get the intention of that, you know, and somebody pointed that out in the comments, and I was like, yeah, that's actually worth addressing. They weren't rude. They were fine. They're like, you know, when they say that, they're speaking to people who are trying to do everything and pretend that they're okay all the time when they're not okay. I get the initial intention of the message, but what it's really conveying to people in mass is that it's okay to not be okay. Just be not okay. And my response to that is, it's not okay to not be okay. That's not healthy. So if you're just sitting in this place of not okay, there's a really good chance that you're not going to be able to get out of that, you know, and that's how, you know, depression and sadness and all of those things work. If you stay there, if you allow yourself to stay there, all the more hard or difficult it is to get out of that mindset. You know, so my only message there, which always gets misconstrued by anyone who wants to misconstrue it, is that you have to do the work. Like, you have to do the work on yourself. If you're not okay, you need to find a way to be okay. And it's not for me. It's not for anybody else. It's for yourself. And that was my, you know, my only intention with the message. And of course, yes, it does. You know, there were people like, that's a terrible thing to say to people. You're making them think that, blah, blah, blah. Well, first of all, I'm not making anyone do anything. We all have free will. So if this message, my attitude when I do those types of videos, I call them the not a therapist videos. And my feeling with those, as with any video I put out, if you're meant to see that video, if it shows up on your For You page, and I know our non-TikTok people don't know what that means. It's like the equivalent of the Facebook news feed, or, you know, the main wall, so to speak, where you get all the content, not just your own stuff. And, you know, I feel like if there's one person that sees that video and goes, oh my God, I need to get myself out. She's right. I got to get myself out of this funk. Then mission accomplished, purpose served. And all the people that didn't like it or didn't agree with it or didn't understand it, that's okay. That video wasn't for you, wasn't intended for you, and just move on.
It's wild how people think messages are super sharp and super tailored and can move people. Like, guys, you listen to content, you watch TikToks or YouTube videos or Instagram, whatever, and when something comes on and you don't agree with it, it's gone from your memory in the next 3 seconds. It's not having this deep, meaningful impact on your life. So it used to be like the big lie in crisis trauma care, like, don't mention the word suicide to someone who's going through something traumatic, because it might give them the idea. It's like, no, we discovered that was fake news. You are, as a suicide interventionist, you're supposed to say, have you thought about killing yourself? Have you thought about hurting yourself? Have you done hurt? You're supposed to ask all those questions. So no one, 0% of people watching Elsa's video would have gone, man, I haven't been doing okay, and this just makes me feel worse about my, no, that would have happened to absolute 0 people. Okay. That's right. Just totally fictitious, totally made up. And no one's going to fall into a deep depression because that video made them feel like they're unable to deal with their stuff.
Right.
The only impact it would have on anyone, or 2 impacts: piss people off, and I'm sure you pissed a lot of people off. But the other one is that person that you described. That's like, yeah. But yeah, that person that's dealing with whatever, that's in financial crisis, that's in marriage crisis, that's in, you know, the republic is collapsing and things kind of suck crisis, and go, whoa, I got to cast off the Eeyore, and I got to, you know, get back to doing my thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, you know, we have this, you know, and who benefits? And the real question here is that I would ask, and I would have the conversation with somebody who took issue with that video or any of the other tough love kind of videos that I've done in the past, which, you know, same types of themes, like you got to pick yourself up. No one else is going to pick you up. You have to do it. You have to do it. And, you know, the conversation I would have, let's talk about who benefits from what. I get no benefit. Nothing happens to me, good, bad, or indifferent, whether you take this advice or not. I don't make any money off of it, you know, nothing. But who's benefiting from you being depressed? Who is benefiting from you being on depression medication? Who's benefiting from you needing therapy? Well, all of those people that you're paying to make you feel better or make you feel like it's okay to not be okay. Because the longer you're not okay, the more money they can make off of you. So, you know, who's benefiting off of your illness or your sadness or your challenges and difficulties in life? So that's where I would say, take a pause and think about that. Who benefits from your misery?
Yeah, exactly. I've got to say, and you're going to hate this, but your laugh now, because of your impressions, reminds me of Kamala Harris.
I know. I scare myself. Joe, I scare myself.
It's one It's funny. I'm obviously black for anyone who's not visually impaired.
Wait, what?
But I can only say socially acceptable black things. The black community rejects those other things. And I
That's 'cause
definitely
you're
ain't black because I didn't vote for Joe
I was going to
Biden.
say, well, that's because you're conservative, so you're not really black.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's super interesting.
Yeah, I like when people come at me and say, if I say anything, so I'm half Cuban and half German. And obviously I don't look Cuban, and I probably don't look German either. I don't really know what the heck I look like, to be honest with you. I have no clue. I mean, I look at myself all the time, but I don't know what I look like nationality-wise. And, anytime I've ever said that to somebody, and going back long before the social media stuff, I have like my maiden name is essentially like the Spanish version of Smith. It's one of those names, extremely common. There's 50 million of us, probably more. And
don't get Joe Biden the pride trying to pronounce it.
Yeah.
Bogados.
Right? Oh my God, yeah. And nobody ever believes me. Nobody ever believes that I'm half, part Hispanic, because apparently to be Hispanic, you can only look one certain way.
Mm.
So I don't know. I guess I break the
so
rules.
racist.
Right? Can you imagine?
They're so racist.
They're so racist. The audacity to tell me, someone who was born half Cuban, half German, born with both sets of grandparents speaking their respective languages. I mean, I literally would go and eat sauerbraten at one house and go have rice and beans in the other. And I mean that very, very literally and very exactly, right down the middle. But because I don't look a certain way, and I'm not like 100%, and I don't look a certain way, I don't qualify as that according to them. Now, wow, talk about offensive, but I'm the offensive one. Go figure.
Yeah, I'm just waiting. I'll know that I've arrived. Whatever that looks like, celebrity, whatever. When I become the new blackface of white supremacy, that's when I can hang my hat up. I'll be like, boom. I'll go in to my wife. My wife is white. I'll be like, babe, we did it. We did it. Yeah. I remember what I was going to say, though, because I used to, my college professor, friend, mentor, I used to make fun of him for one or two things, and I did those impersonations so often that I now do those things. So that's probably got to be, and you practice impersonations for so long, like people don't even realize.
Yes. Yeah. Oh my God. That's so true. Yeah. I definitely, Kamala-isms have slipped into my vocabulary. I've caught myself saying, okay, in regular life. And I've like, I startled like, does anybody hear that? But yeah, the laugh is really, I hurt myself when I hear it. I hear it. Yeah. It's bad.
I've listened to, the other guy's podcast, the guy that does Trump, and you can tell he doesn't try very hard. I don't assume he tries very hard, but you can tell that he tries to make sure that he's his voice. But you listen to enough episodes and you can hear that it's like scope creep. And it's probably because, we're not friends. I don't know him, but I know as a performance artist, this is something that he's practiced. This is something that you've practiced.
Right.
And in that pursuit, you can really, it creeps up on you. It's so annoying.
Yeah.
But yeah, the price we pay, folks. She's surrendered to Kamala-isms for your sake.
I did. I sacrificed myself for you all, for your entertainment.
The anonymity is really the biggest thing. And I'll never forget, all black people don't look alike, but I can't remember if this was Will Smith or Denzel Washington. But one of them was saying that one of their mentors for acting told them to cherish the anonymity because it's something that once it's gone, that's not something you can recoup or recover. They're famous internationally. They could go to they could go on a mission trip to some unreached people group, and if they've run lines or cables or whatever, they'll know who they are. Yeah. They'll be like, oh my gosh, it's one of those two black actors. I can't remember which one it is.
I don't know which
it
one
sounds
it is,
more Denzel-y.
They all look the same. So whichever one he is, I'm sure he's interchangeable with the others. Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like smart is knowing a lot of things. And
yeah, I like to a lot of times just give blanket credit. Just be like, if these aren't my words, I don't know who said it, I'll never remember, but thank them. If you happen to know, put it in the comments if you know who said this, because it wasn't me. I'll throw myself under the bus. I don't mind, because how many thoughts are original in these days, and I hate to sound like so dark and dreary about it, but we're all learning from each other, and we're all getting information from each other, and there's so much information that comes at you at once all the time, especially when we do what we do, because you do have to do so much research and watching and consuming of different medias, so to speak. It's like almost impossible unless you have a photographic memory to remember where you got something from. But so I just give blanket credit.
Handy. Yeah.
Oh my God, I wish. I have the worst memory ever. I've taken to, and I've done this for a while now, and everybody calls me out on it all the time. I refer to everything that isn't this moment as the other day. So if it happened this morning, it was the other day. So the other day
I do that. My wife calls me out. She's like, that was 6 months ago.
Yeah, I'm like, yeah, the other day. Same.
Yeah, it wasn't this day. It was definitely another day.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, and the other thing I keep getting called out for is apparently I say stuff and things a lot, and it's my lazy way of just not completing a sentence, not completing a thought. I just go, yeah, so I went to the store, and then stuff and things, and yeah, and that's the end of the sentence. If people are like,
that reminds me of the Seinfeld episode where they keep saying yada yada yada. She wouldn't yada yada over the good part, would she? Said, oh yeah, I've yada yada over that. Yes. Yeah, stuff and things. I've not heard that one.
Yeah, you're welcome to take it, and you can just say, I don't know, I heard it from somebody. Give them credit whenever.
Yeah. Well, then there's all the misquotes too, and especially about the founding fathers. Good night, like Thomas Jefferson. Love him, I get it, guys. He owned slaves. Oh my gosh, the shortest period that, honestly, and Americans hate hearing this, but this is just it. The triangle slave trade, the Western slave practice, it was the shortest and least significant slave practice in history. Like, that's just a fact, folks.
Yeah.
Sorry, it was, okay?
It's not a convenient fact, right? Not a convenient fact for the left.
12 million slaves total. We had 300,000. I'm not an economist, a mathematician. I do have a basic calculator. That's an extremely small set of those slaves. Brazil had millions of those same, West African, Ivory Coast, Elmina slave castle slaves. They had them in France. They had them in England or in Europe. They had millions in South America. Mm-hmm. We had 300,000, but just. So anyway.
Perspective, right? Perspective is everything. Yeah, I feel like, I feel like I could sit with you for probably hours on end and just take notes on all of this information that you have such extensive knowledge on, because I have very limited, and this is like one of my favorite things to do, to sit and listen to somebody who knows more about this stuff and things than I do. Like, this is so cool for me. I love this.
Well, I use it, and I use it as like a rhetorical device a lot when I'm having debates. I love to have debates, and I'm usually really kind about it and soft-handed, especially in person. And it was funny because initially my wife hated it. Like, I could have a knockdown, drag-out battle with someone, and they'd leave. They'd be laughing, crying. We'd be hugging at the end, up into and including with my mother-in-law. And she's just like, "How is this possible?" And it's like, that's my spiritual gifting. I've been given courage for the purpose of having these conversations, because it's like, oh, no one would ever say that. I'm like, bull, I'm going in. Especially with all the racism. Like, how is it that, I usually say, how is it that we're having these race debates here, but not in a country like Brazil, when we're talking a huge factor, from 300,000 to several million. So they had many, 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 many times more. Mm-hmm. And it kind of breaks down. We know it's not true. My grandma was a German immigrant, like very near after the Holocaust. obviously the Mobley name comes from the slave trade. It was one of those names like Johnson.
Hey,
and James,
family, if you're looking for the perfect gift for the reader in your life,
so it's like,
why not check out one of my books?
It wasn't the thing.
They're all available
and
on
the whole reason I got
Amazon
started on
and
that is
most
because of
major
these
online book
misattributions.
retailers,
Like
as
Thomas
well
Jefferson
as
said,
elsacurt.com.
if you want to do something, or if you want to get something you've never had, you have to do something you've never done. There's nothing in that man's life to even allude to something like that. Like, he never wrote, said, telegraphed, whatever. Like, he just didn't. So it's almost like these quotes don't even matter. And then the things that the men actually said, and their wives and their children, and they journaled and they wrote in letters, we disregard that stuff. The Declaration, we disregard it. One of the only things in pop culture that reveals to the layperson that there were people involved in the revolution, in the founding of the country, that were anti-slavery, and it kind of muddies the water because they appear to be black and Hispanic, but they were actually white. They just they cast it in a racist way, but these were white men, prominent white men, who sacrificed and who surrendered, you know, their lives, their fortunes, and their sacred honor for that purpose. And Hamilton addresses it a little bit. Lawrence Robbins dies, and they talk about Alexander Hamilton wanting to do more against slavery. Now, he was Haitian, but he was definitely pasty face. Everyone would thought he was white. You know, you ever meet that like white Mexican and they're like super fluent in Spanish and like, and it's just like, what? And it's like, oh, this is an ethnicity. This is like a nationality and an ethnicity. It's not mutually exclusive. So Hamilton wasn't black, folks. I'm sorry. Yeah, he wasn't. When you think Haitian, you think like a poor black person, which speaks into the immigration lie because, you know, we take other countries' best and brightest. In reality, they might send money back there for a time, but what the country actually needs is their influence there. And a case in point is one of the literal founding fathers whose face is on American money was from Haiti. How's Haiti doing? Not great.
Not so great. Not so great.
You know, one of the things I was thinking about when you were talking about, you know, fighting basically racism with racism, and the illogic of that, you know, another example of that, not with racism, but a tiny bit in a way, you know, I see a lot anytime I make one of my TikTok videos, you know, making fun of Biden. I do videos of pretending to be Joe Biden's handler. And, you know, she's always just this poor embattled woman who is always trying to get him to say, you know, the right things and not the wrong things. And he says them anyhow, of course, with gusto too, a lot of times. And I always get in the comments, the first thing they say, and mind you, when I make those videos, I make no mention of Donald Trump whatsoever. It's just about the immediate and exact thing that Biden is doing. So if he said something racist, that's what the video is about, nothing else. And they always come in and there's always like 50 comments of, yeah, well, Trump said worse. Well, you're a Trumpster. Trump, 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 Trump. Everything is Trump, Trump, Trump. And, you know, and it always
they can't
makes
help themselves.
They really can't. Trump. Yeah, they can't. Like I mean, I think they almost break their fingertips on the keyboard, you know, with how fast they are, their phone keypad, whatever, trying to get that comment out. And, you know, my only response, which I don't even bother responding anymore, it's just too whatever. But if I were to respond, I would say, hold on. So you're basically justifying this man saying to the black community, you're not black if you don't vote for me, or if you vote for Donald Trump, whatever the exact phrasing was, but that's the gist. You're not black. If you're Hispanic, you probably don't know how to work a computer. If you're Indian, you must work in, you probably work in a 7-Eleven. I mean, right? I mean,
these are real Biden quotes. That's
real absolute Biden quotes, not like a fuzzy image of him. It could be anybody else. Flat out Biden saying these absolutely awful things. And that's just the tip of the iceberg of the things that
he also called president of the United States the first clean black man. He didn't counter. That was... Even I don't get offended, but I was like, dang.
Yeah, that was bad. Like if you want to put like on a list of bad, that's probably pretty high up there. Yeah. And their only response to that is, yeah, well, Trump said, you know, grab him by the, you know what.
I'm like, well, you know what? Trump can say that 1,000 times over if he wants, because the women that he was actually talking about doing that to are women that actually did welcome that type of attention from him. He wasn't saying just go grab. I'm not justifying, but you know, I am explaining that what I know to be true. He's saying something about people who are willing to be treated a certain way because of his financial status. Is that right? Is that appropriate? Blah, blah, blah. Whatever. Who cares? Who really cares? You're talking about consenting adults. But you're comparing something like that with somebody who's saying blatantly racist comments, and they don't want to hold them accountable for it. Like your only response.
I like how men across the nation folded, because I played some sports, guys. If I've not partaken in, I've at least been present while locker room talk was happening. And I like how all of men across, and probably women, who knows what goes on in a female locker room. I don't.
Oh my God.
Leah Thomas might. But locker room talk is really a thing. It's a thing. It's something that you would never want to talk about at work or in mixed company or whatever. It's just real. Like, come on.
And yeah, you know, let's talk for a minute about hypocrisy. All these people that are like, oh my God, so offended.
Clutching their pearls.
Yeah, exactly. Listen, y'all say lots of comments that are off color, inappropriate, you know, objectifying. Although everybody's done. If you haven't, God bless you, you're a saint. You're a saint. I bow down to you, whatever. But everybody has said things that are offensive, objectifying, you know. It just, do you see young girls at these boy band concerts screaming, trying to rip the clothes off of these men, you know, and not just teeny bopper stuff, you know, adult women too, throwing panties on stages.
Kelly concerts used to be rated R.
Yeah. I mean, the stuff that goes on, consentingly, willingly, mutually participatory, is that a word? We're calling it a word if it's not. You know, so everybody stop clutching your pearls that Trump said something vulgar, you know, because I've got a potty mouth on me, Joe. So, you know, I'm not offended. I don't really care at all what he said. But you're comparing the two, and it's just silly to me. You know, own it, just identify it and say, you know, if you find it's fine if somebody got on there and was like, well, you know, just for the record, I didn't like the types of things that Trump said. That was real crap. But this is terrible too, and he shouldn't have said that, and he owes an apology, and, you know, blah blah blah. And this is unbecoming of a president, of a leader of the country.
The real problem is it's a cross between a red herring and a straw man. But the big red herring is you're talking about something that is verifiably racist, sexist, prejudicial, whatever that someone said and that Joe Biden said, and they want to make it about, oh, well, let's talk about the ambiguity of this other guy. It's like, no. Why do we give him a reprieve? We're talking about Joe Biden. We're not talking about, and what if, to kill the whole argument, what if we just see it and we're like, yeah, Trump is a terrible racist, fascist, white supremacist, whatever. Like, we agree. Now, can we go back to talking about Joe Biden?
Right. I wonder if that would diffuse them. We would get crickets. Yeah. We would probably get like crickets, you know, if we just said, okay, fine, you're right. Fine. We'll go with that. Sure.
Biden's less racist.
Yeah. Yeah.
He uses racism for good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they make excuses. They're like, well, what he was trying to say was no
crap.
Yeah. Bull.
What he was trying to say was he doesn't want his children going to a racial jungle. Yes. That's what he was trying to say.
Remember that one? And that was long before the days of stuttering Joe, you know, that lifelong stutter of his, you know. There was no stutter there when he said that. I heard that pretty damn clear. Yeah. Makes my head explode.
Or the fat shaming, you know, when he just called that guy fat, like it was his name. Yeah. Gosh, I can't even speak through it because I'm like thinking about the clip of that.
All right. There are so many incidents of him saying things that you just like, as his pretend handler, I'm like, oh, every time. And, you know,
I like the one that you did when the handler says that we're gonna flip flop, and then there's the other person in the meeting that's like, that's the exact opposite of what we said. She's like, it's
yeah.
not gonna matter. Like,
That was a
fund
recent
the
one too.
police.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. You know, and the only way I had to make that video the way that I did, with humor, because I really, like, I was, you know, I get like really red and blotchy when I get really angry. It's very unattractive. And I was getting so angry when he was saying the things that he was saying, and what he was saying was, we don't
It makes you feel like you're crazy.
Yes, exactly. And, you know, he was like, mumble, 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 not defund the police, mumble, mumble, we have to fund the police. And I'm like, I'm looking around, I'm sitting by myself, I'm looking around going, am I crazy? Because I feel like I'm crazy right now, because we just listened to you and you people talking about defunding the police. Your entire platform was based partially on defunding the police. And now you're like, oh, we're all about funding the police. That's been our stance all along. I'm like,
when I was in high school, one of our little text lingo things was AYFS. Are you freaking serious? And that was my response. Like, are you kidding? This has been your platform, and all of your little black minions out here, Stacey Abrams, Maxine Waters, you guys have been the champions. You've got t-shirts and bumper stickers, and
now you're just like, flip.
We need to fund them. They need to do everything. Like, what? Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I mean, he doubled down hard on that. And I was, you know, I'm like, well, you son of a gun, you just took all of our words that we've been saying for some time now, like verbatim, everything that we've said, that, you know, all of the requirements and expectations of our law enforcement officers, you know, psychologist, social worker, blah, 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 you know, the whole works. He literally took that all verbatim, and he's like, oh, so, okay, well, not him, obviously, his speech writers and handlers, and they're like,
more training and more money.
More money, more training, more everything. We got to treat them with respect, and, you know, let them do their jobs. And it's like, what? If I don't make fun of this right now, I am going to lose my ever-loving you-know-what.
Are you going to make any... I don't know if this is your bag, especially... Guys, there's so many different types of law enforcement. There's everything from sheriffs who are elected and their deputies, police departments that are usually run by a police chief who's appointed by a mayor or governor or whatever. There's state, there's federal, there's all that kind of stuff. Obviously, federal law enforcement is in shambles right now, and I'm not talking about all of them. HSI, I think that you guys are a wonderful agency. You keep your head down. You do Homeland, particularly human trafficking, counterproliferation, interdiction. I get it. ATF, I think that your agency is unconstitutional. It's whatever. DEA, I think the drug war is a massive failure. But yeah, FBI, like, you can't wait. You can't live a day without hearing Department of Injustice or Federal Bureau of Injustice. And yeah, so I mean, I would appreciate some videos about them. I think that they would be really funny.
Yeah, you know what? I think that's actually an excellent idea, and I will credit you in the comments section there for that idea, because you're absolutely right. Those would be some really, really great videos to make, and we're on the same page with that. I completely agree.
I mean, I can't talk about that. We'll talk about this after the show. But there could be so many funny skits about the planning meetings to raid Trump's place.
What a great idea. We have to talk about this afterwards. Let's do a little collaboration. How fun would that be?
But it's like having, can't say on the internet, but from past experiences, it must have been a wild meeting.
It had to have been. I'd want to play it as that one guy talking sense. That one guy talking sense in the room. That's how I'd like to play that, and the response and reaction to that. Oof.
Man, so interesting.
I can tell you, all this stuff does not foster any love from, you know, and by design. Everything that they do, you know, saying that anyone in this administration is stupid is a great disservice to ourselves, because they're not stupid. They are far from it. They are far from stupid. They have been playing the long game for a long time, and we're playing catch up. We're playing catch up right now, and you know, we're behind, but we're catching up. But this was the long game. Shake up your trust in federal agencies, you know, all of those things. Now they're going to make it like, you know, now they're going to turn it around. Here's my unprofessional opinion of that. They're going to turn the whole thing around now, you know, because they already started, you know, our police are good, you know, Kamala's saying some similar things, and attacks on, you know, federal on police officers is not acceptable. You know, all of the things they're starting to say now, that's because they want to, you know, they want to take over the entire police force. You know, they want to make it a federalized thing, and that's where their angle is probably going to be. Like, we have to protect them and defend them, and this is what we need. And they've got an angle, and you know, we just have to be super, super aware and fight against, because they want us to continue to hate law enforcement and say, you know, something has to change. It has to be dismantled, because people are already saying that. You got to dismantle the FBI and start over from scratch. Oh, how convenient for the left to start over from scratch.
Yeah, well, we'll do it.
Oh, sure. We've got that. Yeah.
I did hear one good argument, though, for starting a new one, because they could call it the Federal Bureau of Justice, which is, or the Federal Justice Bureau, FJB.
That would be magical. I would like to see that.
Pretty good. That would be pretty good. Those badges would be great.
Oh, so good. I love that.
So we are over the hour, but I just want to ask you one last thing, just to get your take, because everyone is, I don't know. I'm not you always feel like you have to preface things like this. Like, I'm not like a super prepper. Do we purify our water? Yeah, that's because we don't like drinking gross water with toxins, not because we think that water isn't going to be available next week or whatever. Do we have guns and ammo? Yeah, because I'm like a black redneck. I don't think, you know, if civil unrest is going down, I am uniquely trained and equipped for that. Do I think that's like no, I don't think that it's gonna be Red Dawn next week.
Right.
But
one of the greatest movies of all time, by the way.
Yeah. But just like, on that scale of whatever the scale is, like 0 to total collapse, like, how are you feeling about the food stuff and all of the things?
Yeah, just all of the things.
What is your just like meh, or just like your pucker factor?
Yeah, I think I'm somewhere in between. I'm very aware of the possibilities of how quickly things can turn and change. Do I fully expect that that's going to happen? I don't know. I really don't know. So what I think is I think we should, and as we should in life in general, be prepared for possibilities. And I think, you know, knowledge is a great thing. Know how to do the things that you need to do in order to keep your, because, you know, I like to be very specific.
Funny place, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's important.
Because of the big tech overlords. Like, I got a message. I'll just say there's a thing called a Carver matrix. It's how you analyze threats, or it's how you identify targets and analyze weaknesses from incoming threats. Like, you know, if someone were to attack your house, would they use this store or this store? Well, let's Carver matrix it. Or would they attack you at home or at work or en route? Well, let's Carver matrix it to figure out what I explained this, and I got a warning type thing from one of the big tech people. And it's emailed back and I said, well, this is bullshit. Like, I've been trained in training this to people like this. Like, I'm an expert in this. If I can't talk about this, then who can?
Right. Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy.
Anyway, but
and it tells you're on the right track.
The things.
The things.
You can say the things, but you can't say Carver matrix on the internet. So you know who you are, and I'm still streaming on you. So I hope that you send me another one of those stupid things.
Good. You tell them.
Anyway, I
Yes,
interrupted.
no, that's okay. Yeah, no, I think, you know, as small as knowing how to grow your own food, like, you know, and I know that sounds like, oh my God, she's a crazy survivalist. No, but you really should know how to grow your own food. You know, you should know.
What's the downside of knowing how to grow food?
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah, like it's just like basic knowledge that I feel like everybody should have. You should be able to grow your own food. You should be able to be self-sufficient. You should have the stuff and things to protect yourself and your family should the need arise. And prepared for possibilities. I think that's where I'm staying with that. Prepare for possibilities.
Awesome. Well, guys, prepare for possibilities with your stuff and things, and you know, read the books and do the stuff and things. Yeah, I feel like this is I can't say stuff and things. It kind of flows. So if you say it too much, you will definitely start to say it. This is the Joe Mobley Show. Thanks for hanging out with us. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe. If you're a podcast listener, I love your reviews. I love your reviews just more than the ratings. You know, someone just leaves a rating. I like to read the reviews. You can always send me an email at ask@thejoemobleyshow.com, and make sure that you, I love it when the internet works right. Follow Elsa Curt. Her website is elsacurt.com. It's right below our talking heads. It's also click of a button on the podcast. You can follow her LinkedIn. No, you can follow her TikTok. TikTok's like the opposite of LinkedIn. I just got booted from LinkedIn.
No.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I was a little upset about that because LinkedIn was the only social media I had, and I've built a very robust network there. I've met with LinkedIn top voices. Some of them are friends.
Wow.
Yeah, I was pretty bummed. And, well, I can't talk about that. I'm pursuing all avenues with that, but because I read the policy and then they did the classic thing. Oh, not that policy. The first one we said you violated is actually this one. The first one was spam and scams.
Wow.
And I'm like, no. And you know what? Oh, it was that same episode that I was talking about the Carver Matrix. Interesting.
Oh, how coincidental.
You know what? Here's what I said about the Carver Matrix. Let's bring it on up so people can this is what's super spooky about it, guys. Okay, so, and then we'll end the show. So this is the Carver Matrix. It was developed by United States military circa Vietnam War to do, you know, the stuff and things. But Carver, so it measures the criticality, accessibility, recuperability, vulnerability, effect, and recognizability of a given target. They've got, you know, the example here is water intake, power center, sanitation processors. They carver them all out. Each letter gets a number. You add up the numbers and you see 11, 18, 11. Oh, the sanitation processors is where it's at. Now, what I said about the Carver Matrix is to familiarize yourself with it, put yourself in the mind of the World Economic Forum, you know, the faceless, nameless overlords, and ask yourself, and you've got Saul Alinsky's, you know, 8 rules for tyrannical living. Ask yourself, how would I do it? Use the Carver Matrix to ask yourself, how would I do? This is what they did in Red Dawn when they were saying they were looking at troop movements and equipment and, you know, shift changes and stuff like that. You're getting all that human intelligence to know stuff, but the practical, tactical application of it is to put it into a Carver Matrix. So all I said to the audience was, familiarize yourself with it, and just as an experiment, if you wanted to seriously disrupt economic supply chains, if you wanted to disrupt the functioning of a nation or a state or whatever, Carver Matrix it, what would you come up with? And then think about things that have been happening. That's all that I said.
And they pulled your plug.
Yeah, and it was the only strike. It was one strike done on LinkedIn.
Wow.
So anyway, that's very interesting. Hey, this is the first time I got to Carver Matrix on YouTube, so we'll see how they like it, because I was in YouTube jail
we'll
recently.
Find out. Don't hashtag it or anything.
Yeah, goodness gracious. Anyway, I stand by that, guys. It's something that You don't only have to use for military. It's actually, if you scroll down in the Carver matrix, you can use it for business, for measuring risk, or for measuring product launches, which product when, what business line when. You can Carver matrix it. But anyway, they don't care. I'm conservative, so they hate me. Back to closing the show. Follow Elsa Curt. The website is elsacurt.com. It's down below. Follow her on TikTok, not LinkedIn. I don't know. She might be on LinkedIn. Who knows?
I'm there.
I don't know. Oh, okay. Well, there you go. It's not as funny as TikTok, though.
Not nearly as funny.
And people are like, oh, the data. Are you kidding me? The data? Look at the apps on your phone. Look at, right. Do you deal in all cash, or do you swipe a plastic card?
Right.
Even if it's a debit card, that consumer data, oh my gosh.
Yeah, how about every time you tell Alexa to play a song for you in your kitchen? Come on now, people.
Yeah, everyone's Alexa just turned on.
Yeah, I know. Sorry, guys.
Yeah, so, yeah. I say all the things. Hey, Siri, hey, Google, hey this, hey that. Mm-hmm. But anyway, make sure that you follow her. You don't have to do the post while you're listening, but you could. It could be a fun little thing, just an insight thing that you guys have going on with the Elsa Curt Show. Elsa, thanks so much for coming on. This was a blast. We'll have to do it again sometime soon.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. It was awesome.
All right, guys, that's all we got. Have a good weekend.
Hey, family, if you're looking for the perfect gift for the reader in your life, why not check out one of my books? They're all available on Amazon and most major online book retailers, as well as elsacurt.com. Hey guys, Elsa here. I want to share a really exciting opportunity I have for you. If your goal is to write and publish a book, but you're overwhelmed and uncertain of the process, I've got something amazing for you. It is an audio course called Path to Authorship that I have created especially for new and aspiring authors. I have been exactly where you are right now. When I began my writing journey, I took a leap of faith, flew by the seat of my pants, and landed on my face. I made a lot of mistakes along the way, but that's okay because I learned so much from each one. It's because of these growth experiences that I can help you on your journey. So whether you've just started writing your manuscript or you've had one ready and waiting for years, something has held you back. Well, now you can stop postponing your dream because help is here. As a traditionally and self-published author of over 20 books, plus countless articles, blogs, and writer's guides, and having appeared on author panels, television, YouTube, radio, and print, plus my own podcasts, I've learned quite a bit about the writing, publishing, and promoting process. Now I'm ready to share what I've learned with you. Inside this amazing course, the roadblocks to writing and how to overcome them. Discover what kind of writer you are, setting goals, creating and implementing a routine, word count goals, all the fundamentals of writing, editing, types of editors, publishing, your book cover and title, promoting and marketing, and so much more. If you're interested in this amazing opportunity to get your writing journey started, check out the link in the show.
Well, it's official. The Biden administration has decided to go the Supreme Chancellor into Emperor route. They have decided to take the Grand Republic of these United States and turn them into the Galactic Empire. Or at least that's what it appears in Joe Biden's latest speech from Philadelphia. We're going to talk about it today. I'm Pastor Josh Barnes. This is the show where we are unashamed to look at political, social, cultural, and theological issues from a biblical worldview. We do that because Jesus died on the cross and he rose from the dead. And he said the Bible is true. So he knows what he's talking about, obviously. And if the Bible is true, then we're wrong about whatever the issue is if we disagree with the Bible about it. And so we want to look at issues from a biblical worldview. This was the historic worldview of the Founding Fathers, even though they weren't all right about biblical and theological things. They definitely had a biblical worldview in the way that they approached the world, and this is why our country exists today. So we want to break down this speech. Oh my goodness, dystopian doesn't really describe it very well, but it definitely had a really eerie authoritarian feel. I felt like his whoever was doing the decorating was probably was really going for this like Banana Republic sort of a feel to this. It's pretty creepy. Just the setting in the background, but then what he said in his speech. We're gonna break it down. I tried to pick out sound bites from the speech to respond to, and it was just so bad. There was just so much I wanted to respond to that I said, all right, we're just going to play the whole speech. We're going to play the whole speech, and we're going to stop, and we're going to pick through it piece by piece. I just think it all needs to be picked through, all of it, right? If you heard the speech, you know, you're just like, oh, this is so bad, this is so bad. We're going to do that. We're going to slow it down. We're going to pick through all of it. So if you're watching on FISM, by the way, Point of View goes all over the place. It's on Right America Media, on FISM TV, on KSOK Conservative Radio Network. However you're watching, just know, if you're watching on FISM TV, you're the first person to see the Point of View episode when it comes out. FISM TV, you're the first person to see it. But it's broken up into 20 to 30-minute blocks, really 28.5-minute segments is our show. So on FISM. So we're definitely not going to fit this into a 28.5-minute segment. The speech itself was 24 minutes. So just know there'll be a part 1, a part 2, and part 3. And so for everyone else, you'll probably watch it all together or hear it all together on KSOK Conservative Radio Network. And in that case, you're actually going to be hearing the whole thing with little breaks in between where I say, all right, that's the end of the show. Join us next time for part 2, and then we'll go right into part 2. So I just wanted to just give that little side note before we jump in. We're going to jump into the speech. Before I do, let me just give you, in case you're new to this, we've talked about this verse a lot, but this verse gives us reason to care about this as Christians, right? As Christians, we should care about what happens in our government. The political reality that we live in is important. It is not the most important thing. The most important thing for Christian is to share the gospel of Jesus Christ, that Jesus died on the cross for sins, that we can have eternal forgiveness and eternal life by repentance and faith in Christ. But that's not, while that's the most important thing, our government is important. We're told to pray for our government leaders, that they would let us lead a quiet and peaceable life in godliness and honesty. And I've got this verse in the book of Jeremiah, chapter 29, verse 7. Where God is giving a principle to the people of Israel who are carried away captive into Babylon. And he tells them while they're there that they're going to be there for a while. And since they're going to be there out of their land for a while in someone else's land in Babylon, he says this to them, and seek the peace, verse 7, seek the peace of the city whither I have caused you to be carried away captives, and pray unto the Lord for it. For in the peace thereof ye shall have peace. He's saying you're going to be there for a while. It's not your land. But while you're there, seek and do whatever you can to provide for the peace and the prosperity of that city, because that'll be good for you. And while our final citizenship is in heaven, right? Our citizenship is the kingdom of God. While we're waiting for that, we should seek the peace of the government where we are now. We should seek what's best for our government. So I think it's a very noble thing for us to be interested and concerned about politics and political things. And so that's the preface by which we say this does fall under what is the biblical worldview on these things. And this is actually this is concerning, because remember that the first Christians, they lived in an authoritarian society in Rome. Rome put them to death. They hated Christians. It was a war on Christianity. And there is a war on Christianity now, but not in a physical way in America. There is this desire to stamp out Christian views and Christian values. But there's no ability to actually physically act on it, throw people in prison and stuff for that. But if the people who want to war against Christianity get to a place in the government where they can attack Christianity in a physical way, shut down churches physically, throw pastors in prison, they will certainly do that. So this is concerning from an authoritarian standpoint. One of the reasons that America has been so welcoming to Christians is because it's been free, and people who hate Christians can't do anything about it, right? They can't stop us. And this is concerning the authoritarian nature of the speech. But without any more discussion about it, let's start playing it, because we'll never get through if we don't get started. Here is Joe Biden. By the way, he's in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, at Independence Hall, where the Constitution was signed, and he feels that this is the very appropriate place to give the speech. I think it's absolutely inappropriate. Let's just get it started here.
My fellow Americans, please, if you have a seat, take it. I speak to you tonight from sacred ground in America. Independence Hall in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. This is where America made its Declaration of Independence to the world more than 2 centuries ago with an idea unique among nations, that in America, we're all created equal. This is where the United States Constitution was written and debated. This is where we set in motion the most extraordinary experiment of self-government the world has ever known. With 3 simple words: we the people, we the people. These two.
Now, what's interesting here is, as I mentioned, look at the background here. This is really creepy. I mean, you got these 2 shadowy guards behind him, and the American flag has never looked so creepy before. I mean, I am a patriot. I love America. I think it's great. I love the American flag in most settings, but that is about the creepiest way that I've ever seen the American flag displayed. And you see this like eerie, hellish red glow behind him, and this just, I'm sorry, this is just not, this is not a good, the look is bad, all right? We're not dealing with like the details of the speech yet, but this looks pretty bad. And I'm really, really shocked that they show the audience. It just doesn't make sense that they would show the audience here. Let me go, I'm going to show you the clip here where they had the, look at that. There are 3 rows of fold-up chairs. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. There's about 20 people in a row, and there's 3 rows of them. So to me, it looks like there's maybe 100 people here. Maybe 100 people. You can even see where the rows end. If you're listening on the radio and not being able to see this, I'm just saying it's in a semicircle. There's 3 rows of chairs in a semicircle, and then behind that are cameras and some of the press. But of the people actually invited there, besides the press, and this might actually be press, even the ones sitting down just taking notes, reporters. This is like nobody. I mean, you would think that for a speech with the President of the United States, it would be rather easy to get, 1,000 people to show up or whatever. I mean, there's probably less than 100 people there. As a matter of fact, I mean, Point of View has a bigger audience than the President of the United States, at least in person. This is really sad. This is really sad. This is already the image. I'm surprised that they even showed the people here, because it makes it look like he doesn't have any support. The optics here just aren't good. Okay, let's just say that and move on. It's already looking creepy. All right, let's continue.
Documents and the ideas they embody, equality and democracy, are the rock upon which this nation is built. They're how we became the greatest nation on earth. They're why, for more than 2 centuries, America has been a beacon to the world.
So let's skip forward just a little bit. All right, here we go.
We must be honest with each other and with ourselves. Too much of what's happening in our country today is not normal.
Too much of, now I wonder what he's about to say. Too much of what's happening in America today is not normal. I agree. All right, listen, we have women saying they're men and saying that it's a hate crime if you don't agree. We have men saying they're women, and it's a hate crime if you don't let them wrestle against women and women's wrestling. Men. And if you don't call them she or her, you hate them. It's a hate crime. Like, that's not normal. Okay? I'll just come out and say it. Men marrying men is not normal. Okay? That is not normal. I mean, for thousands of years of human history, this has not been normal. Okay? And, we have things that are going on in America that are not normal. I agree with that. I wonder what he's about to say are things that are not normal.
Donald Trump and the MAGA Republicans represent an extremism that threatens the very foundations of our republic.
Okay, first of all, extremism, unfortunately, even if Donald Trump and the MAGA Republicans was extremism, extremism is normal in America. It's actually rather normal. There's the KKK has been in America for a long time. I don't support the KKK at all. I'm just saying that groups that are extreme are rather common in America. This is rather normal, unfortunately. Is Donald Trump and the MAGA Republicans, are they not normal? Are they extremist? Well, what is MAGA? I mean, it's this sort of derogatory thing according to Biden, but MAGA stands for Make America Great Again. Like, they want to make America great. Now, whether you agree or disagree with how they want to go about making America great, it is super normal to want to make America great. They love their country, and they want it to be great. And in their minds, they want it to be as it was founded. I mean, that's their desire. They don't want to change America. They don't want it to be communist. They don't want it to be socialist. They want it to be what it was founded to be. Right? So, disagree with how they go about trying to get there. But is that extremist? I don't think that's extremist. Those who want America to be great, again, are extremist. It doesn't seem... All right, well, let's hear him out. Let's hear him out. Let's hear what he has to say about why this group is extremist. He's going to try to convince us, so let's see what he has to say.
Now, I want to be very clear up front. Not every Republican, not even the majority of Republicans are MAGA Republicans. Not every Republican embraces their extreme ideology. I know, because I've been able to work with these mainstream Republicans. But there's no question that the Republican Party today is dominated, driven, and intimidated by Donald Trump and the MAGA Republicans.
By the way, that's who he's talking to, right? He's not trying to convince Trump supporters not to love Trump. He's trying to convince people who go along with, who voted for Trump but weren't like big lovers of Trump. He's trying to convince them that they should be ashamed of themselves, that they should distance themselves from Trump. That's really the goal, it seems, of the speech. And I think it's silly because I think those people have always been sort of level-headed and are going to support people who have good policies and try not to, jump onto a bandwagon. So you're trying to get them to jump off of a bandwagon. They're not on a bandwagon. So, I'm not sure what this speech is accomplishing other than being divisive. Divisive with a dark red hellish background and imposing guard figures. It doesn't seem to, I'm just wondering how this accomplishes what he says he wants to accomplish, which is unifying the country. It doesn't seem to be doing that. But let's hear him out.
And that is a threat to this country. These are hard things. But I'm an American president. Not a president of red America, blue America, but of all America.
Except MAGA America, apparently. except those who love Trump. It's like, everybody, let's turn and let's attack people who like Trump. This is even worse when you realize that Trump is the opponent, was his opponent in the last election, and will possibly be his opponent in the next election. You realize that the current president is using his position as president to tell people the whole country should turn on and be against anyone who supports an opponent of me. It's literally what he's saying. This is scary. This is creepy when you realize what he's talking about. He's saying this guy opposes me, and so everyone who supports him needs to turn on him, right? That's scary. Now, he's going to try to provide reasons why we should all be against this as anti-American. But keep in mind, Joe Biden is biased. Right? This is not an unbiased opinion that he has here. This is the guy who ran against Trump in the last election and may very possibly run against Trump in the next election. This isn't an unbiased opinion of a guy who just I'm really concerned about America, and I really just, for the sake of democracy, we need to all stand against Trump and anyone who supports Trump. No, you are literally the one who stands to benefit from Trump failing. You stand to benefit more than anyone from Trump failing. You stand to what's the opposite of benefit? You stand to reap the worst results from Trump succeeding. So you are the least unbiased opinion on this subject. You are the least qualified, level-headed person to talk about this subject. Joe Biden is. He's literally the most biased person in the world on the subject of Trump. And so he's the one who should be telling America what they should do with MAGA Republicans. See, that doesn't really make sense. It doesn't quite jive. But let's let him continue.
And I believe it's my duty to level with you, to tell the truth, no matter how difficult.
Right. You just want to tell the truth. I mean, it's just my duty to tell the truth. I have no interest in this, right? It's not like I'm going to run against him in the next election, or I just got done running against him a couple of years ago. No, I have no personal interest here. It's just my duty to tell the truth, right? It's not because he's my political opponent or that I stand to gain another term if I can defeat him, I think, or the fact that, none of that. It's nothing political here. I just want to tell you the truth. Sure, Joe. We believe you, Mr. President. We believe you. All right.
No matter how painful. And here, in my view, is what is true. MAGA Republicans do not respect the Constitution.
Literally all that all MAGA Republicans can do is talk about the Constitution. Like, this is their big thing, right? Conservative Republican. Now, we got to define MAGA Republicans. Obviously, there are, you could divide up Trump supporters into just general conservatives. Most general conservatives are in support of Trump, but they aren't like Trump's the only option. They also like DeSantis. They like Ted Cruz. They like other options for the possible next president. But then you have the people who are Trump only, right? No one but Trump. They're absolute lovers of Trump. Many of those would be believers in the idea of QAnon. By the way, a lot of my good friends do believe that. I think they're wrong. I think that's been proven, but that tends to be something that some of them believe. But the point here is that once you define who the MAGA Republic, you're really narrowing it down to the conservative base of the Republican Party. The conservatives is really seems to be who he's talking about here, and they're not against the Constitution. They're the only ones in the political realm who care about the Constitution. If you care about the Constitution, you become a conservative. That's sort of the thing that defines conservatives. And conservatives, by and large, have supported Trump, though that not exclusively. But hey, he's doing conservative things and accomplishing good things for the conservative agenda. So saying that MAGA Republicans don't love the Constitution, literally the Democrats feel that the Constitution is a living, breathing document and needs to, it needs to be, changed with the times. And if you talk to a Democrat about the Constitution, they're going to say, oh yeah, but the Constitution's bad because it's got, slaves are a third of a vote or whatever. I think it's maybe a quarter of a. You always get this negative attitude about the Constitution from the Democrats. So is that a threat to our democracy, Joe? Are the Democrats a threat to our democracy since they don't like the Constitution? Because it seems like the MAGA Republicans actually do. I mean, at least they give lip service to loving the Constitution. They talk about it a lot. They certainly know the Constitution well, most of them. As a matter of fact, that's kind of why they were upset on January 6th, is because they felt that there was a constitutional way to not affirm the result of what the states were trying to affirm in who won the election, and they thought there was a constitutional way to do that. That's why they were all there on January 6th. So They don't care about the Constitution. That's clearly false. Like, that is clearly a false claim. They love the Constitution. You may disagree with their take on the Constitution or whatever, but that's not at all the position of MAGA Republicans. Like, not at all. This is a false claim from somebody who has reason, really good reason, to make false claims about the Republicans. So, right, why should we think of you as a sort of non-biased source here? I guess it's good that there's only about 100 people in the audience.
They do not believe in the rule of law. They do not recognize.
They don't believe in the rule of law. Wait a minute. Who are the people who support the police? I mean, that's the Republican Party, by and large. Even more when you get to the conservatives. You know, they're big in support of the rule of law. Remember what happened in 2020 when there were riots and looters and they were burning things down? What did Trump do? He said, no, the law enforcement needs to enforce the law and stop this rioting and looting and destruction of property. Guess who was against that? Well, it was the Democrats, of course. The Democrats said, no, we need to burn things down. We need to do this. We need to be we need civil unrest because the only way to have change. Well, now here's a Democrat saying that it's the MAGA guys who are against the rule of law. Well, that's absolutely nonsense. But he's going to try to defend it. Here's the evidence he's going to bring. We'll talk about it as it comes.
The will of the people. They refuse to accept the results of a free election.
I'm going to get in trouble for this. All right, why do MAGA support? Why do Trump make America great? I'm not going to say MAGA. Why do Trump make America great guys not accept the results of the election? Well, because for a couple of reasons. Number one, we know for a fact that there was cheating in the election, right? Okay, there's some of it, right? Now, there's debatable how much there was, whether it changed the outcome, but we know that. Well, we know there were dead people that voted. We know that some of that happened. The question, when this goes up, fact check, there was no evidence to say that there was enough to change the election. That's true. Okay, there is no evidence to say it was enough to change the election, as far as I've seen, but it certainly happened. And the question is, since we know it happened, and since we know it happened on a rather large scale, the MAGA people are upset that it never was investigated to find out if there was enough to change the election. Like the fact that nobody wanted to investigate it, they swept it under the rug and they just confirmed the results. Even though they knew there was cheating, they knew there was cheating on a large scale, and it's possible that it could have been enough to change the results, and it was never investigated. So you're right, there is no evidence that, that's solid evidence to say the election was stolen. The problem that the MAGA people have is that there could have been, and it was never looked into. And they didn't want to overturn the results. They wanted someone to look into it. They wanted it to be investigated before anything was confirmed. That's what they were upset about. That's what they still are upset about. And of course, they feel that the reason is because Trump really won and that this was all swept under the rug. Which, I mean, I guess they probably have, feel that is fair. And I'm not going to say I disagree or agree. I'm just saying this is their position. They feel that an investigation should have happened and no investigation happened. And that's why they're upset. If an investigation had happened and it had come back, nope, there just wasn't enough cheating to make a difference, we wouldn't have this. The reason we have the problem of people claiming the election was stolen is because there was an allegation that seemed credible that the election was stolen, and it was never investigated. Still hasn't been investigated to this day, and all the evidence has pretty much been swept under the rug because it doesn't matter anymore. Now we have a president, right? So that's frustrating. You're going to have this in a country when you have a free and fair election that is questioned by a large group of people, a giant large group of people question the election, and no investigation is made to satisfy their concerns. You're going to have people who then are going to continue to question the election until an investigation is made to satisfy their concerns. So this seems actually very democratic and very in line with America's principles. If you're watching on FISM TV, that's all the time we have for this episode. Join us where we continue tomorrow at the same time, same place on FISM, and we'll see you next time on Point of View. All right, for the rest of us, we're going to go ahead and continue. If you're just joining us on FISM TV, welcome back. Welcome back. We've been going through the speech, the wonderful authoritarian speech of Joe Biden, and we've just sort of been breaking it down. So far, he's made claims about saying that our democracy is under threat by MAGA Republicans, Make America Great Again, people who want America to be great again, because they support Trump. And the reason, he says, is they're against the rule of law, which is certainly not the case. They hate the Constitution, which is certainly these are just factually wrong. This is not the attitude or the position of Trump or any of his followers that I know of. Maybe there's extremes on everything. And he's also said that they want to overturn, that they won't accept the results of an election. And we said this in the last episode, if you were here last time, that this is absolutely just this is kind of nonsense. This is silliness, because a concern was raised by a large, I think it was something like 70% of Republicans felt like that there was election interference. 70% of Republicans felt this way after the election, and no investigation was ever made to satisfy their concerns. You know, when there was the concern in Florida, right, the hanging chads, back with George Bush and all that, and an investigation was made to satisfy those concerns so we could move on and be sure that we had the right president, right? That never happened in this election. That's the problem here. The problem is there was no investigation. The problem is not that MAGA Republicans are hanging on to it. They never had their concerns addressed and in any sort of satisfactory way. There is no evidence. That's true, because there was no investigation. You do an investigation, you say there's no evidence. Now we can move on. But there's been no serious investigation. Nobody would look at it. The states wouldn't look at it. The court wouldn't look at it. They tried to get the Senate to look at it. They wouldn't look. Nobody would look at it. But no, we're just going to accept it. And that's the reason why there's concern. And whether or not the election was stolen is not the issue. The fact is that we will never know, or never have those concerns satisfied without an investigation, a thorough investigation into it. And so Biden is complaining at them for not accepting it, but they have legitimate concerns that have never been addressed. And if you want to give an olive branch, if you want to say, all right, listen, we'll bring you, we'll give you a peace offering. We want to have unity. If you wanted unity, you'd let an investigation into the election be done. But Biden doesn't want to do that. The fact that he doesn't want to do it is a bit telling. Also, the fact that he has 0 approval rating and has about 100 people in his, monumental historical speech from Philadelphia, kind of shows you a little bit about what we're dealing with here. So he's never really been a very loved president. And if he did genuinely, fairly win the election, which he may have, we don't have proof one way or the other. If he did, it is a head scratcher how he did, because he was never really, he's never been incredibly popular. So anyway, that's where we are so far in the speech. Let's continue on.
And they're working right now, as I speak, in state after state, to give power to decide elections in America to partisans and cronies.
Now, he's probably talking about redistricting, which the Democrats do whenever they can. This is something Democrats do, Republicans do. You have to do it. You have to redistrict, and of course you're going to try to district in such a way that's beneficial. Partisans are everyone in politics. Everyone in politics is partisan. Literally, Joe Biden is a partisan politician. he is a Democrat, right? He's not nonpartisan, right? He's actually very nonpartisan. He's incredibly partisan. So, but he's saying, oh, they're giving power to partisans to do this. Like partisans like you, Joe? Yeah, of course, partisans are, anyone who makes any decision in government is doing so with partisanship. that's part of it. So yeah, and both sides do this. Both sides redistrict to try to make the districts better for the outcome of the elections. Whether that's right or wrong is really a whole other conversation. But this is not something new. This is not something against the Constitution. They certainly can do it, and that's not stealing or rigging an election. You know, a bunch of dead people voting, that would be rigging an election. Republicans, MAGA supporters are not trying to do that. So, you know, that's very different. So he is complaining at them for complaining about the results of an election while also accusing them of trying to steal an election, which is kind of complaining about the results of a future election. Like, this is so inconsistent, it's really not funny. It's just not even funny.
Empowering election deniers to undermine democracy itself. MAGA forces are determined to take this country backwards. Backwards.
Is that such a bad thing? Like, MAGA does mean make America great again, right? Is it such a bad thing for America to go backwards to when it was great? I mean, just think about this for a second. All right. America under Trump, booming economy, just, you know, China was scared of us. North Korea was scared of us. Russia didn't know what to think, didn't want to invade Ukraine because I don't know what's going to happen if I do. Like, ISIS was there. It got destroyed under Trump. I mean, listen, is it really so bad to go back to that? I mean, since Joe Biden has been president, what has gotten better in America? I'll wait. You think it through. Think about one thing that's gotten better in America. Less mean tweets? I think not. I think not. No, I think that social media has become more of a slime pit. Just Trump's not on it. Okay, Trump's not on it. But that what happened while Trump was still president. He was taken off of Twitter. Like, since Joe Biden has become president, what has become better in America? Why wouldn't you want to go backwards a little bit? Go backwards a few years. I think we need to go backwards even further than that. I think we need to go back to our founding, really. But going backwards is, look, Joe, you're standing in front of Independence Hall where the Declaration of Independence was signed, talking about our history and saying, Republicans want to take us back to this. Yeah, that's what conservatism is. We want to take us back to our founding. We think that would be a wonderful thing. And he's using that as if it's a bad thing. I'm not sure why.
To an America where there is no right to choose, no right to privacy, no right to contraception, no right to marry who you love.
No right to choose. He's talking about choosing to murder your children. No right to privacy. Privacy in your own body. So if you have a child, as long as that child's still in your body, mother, you can murder that child. You have the right to privacy. You have the right to choose to murder children. Like, they want to take us back to that. Look, it's not just MAGA Republicans. That is the official position of the entire Republican Party. Now, Biden just got done earlier in the speech talking about how, you know, he's the president of the whole party. He's the president of Democrats and Republicans and just not MAGA Republicans. And then he says, but they want to take us back where we have no choice to murder our own children. We have no choice in abortion. Yeah, we don't want you. We readily admit, all Republicans should readily admit, we are against you having the choice to murder people. Right? We are definitely against. We also are against you having the choice to rob people. We're against you having the choice to embezzle funds. We are against you having the choice to endanger people's lives. There's a lot of laws actually that we are for, which actually keep you from choosing that thing, or else you'll be punished. So yeah, yeah, I think that's perfectly reasonable. I don't think that that's anything extreme at all. You know, wanting laws against murder.
They promote authoritarian leaders and they fan the flames of political violence.
They promote authoritarian leaders. Like Joe Biden's not that. He's not an authoritarian leader. No, look, he's standing in front of the hellish background with his Navy bodyguards there. I think that's Navy. Is that Navy? I don't know. No, he's not an authoritarian leader. No, absolutely not. Joe Biden, who has said nothing about the authoritarian leader Muriel Bowser, who is the mayor, I think, of D.C., and recently said that all children who go to school in D.C. Have to be vaccinated, period. Every child. Private school or public school. Now, it is actually law that children have to go to school. So now she's saying you are by law required to go to school and you are by law required to get a vaccine. Who's the authoritarian leader here? I think it's the Democrats. I really feel like this sounds like a speech against the Democrats. But then he targets it at the MAGA people. This is exactly what the MAGA people are upset at Democrats for. It sounds like someone's trying to sort of flip the narrative. I don't think it's going to work, honestly. Just to be honest, I don't think it's going to work.
That are a threat to our personal rights, to the pursuit of justice, to the rule of law, to the very soul of this country. They look at the mob that stormed the United States Capitol on January 6th.
Oh, boy. Oh, boy.
Brutally attacking law enforcement, not as insurrectionists who placed a dagger at the throat of our democracy.
Okay, all right, let's pause here for a second. He said, look at the mob that attacked the Capitol on January 6th and brutally attacked police. Is that what he said? Yeah, I think that's what he said. There were millions of people at the Capitol who would have called themselves MAGA supporters, Make America Great Again, Trump supporters. Millions of people at the Capitol. Millions of them. Guess what? Not one of them brought a gun to the Capitol. Not one of them brought a gun. They were not insurrectionists. They were not trying to take anything over. Or else they were just really stupid. I mean, not one of them brought a gun. All right? There were millions of them. And by the way, I was there. I didn't storm the Capitol. But I was there on the steps of the Capitol. And I could see millions of people down the National Mall who had no idea what was going on at the Capitol. They had no idea. No clue. They were not a part of it at all. They were, quote unquote, MAGA Republicans, but they were not at all involved in this. So you really can't paint all MAGA this way. There's a lot of speculation, really good speculation, and me having been there covering it from a journalistic perspective, I will say that there is really good reason to believe that there was infiltration in the ranks of those millions of people of other groups that were not MAGA friendly that wanted to make it look like MAGA was causing trouble. There were certainly people who came in body armor, looking, planning to do something nefarious, but not planning to take over the Capitol, right? They had body armor, but no guns. They had no, right? So there was some of that, but that wasn't connected with the group of people. They actually were at the Capitol before Trump finished speaking. There's a lot that went on there that people don't get. But if you were there and you were kind of watching the timeline of things, because I was actually there and I was covering it from a news perspective, none of the characterizations really line up. But there's a narrative that the Democrats want to spin here. There were some MAGA people who got caught up in it, oh yeah, we're gonna push back the police, and there was some pushing and shoving of the police, but the police handled that pretty easily. I mean, they didn't get anywhere. The people who pushed and shoved the police were, yeah, they didn't get very far. I saw some of that, and it's like, it's not going to work out for you. They got tear gassed, they got pushed back, they got arrested. I was not in the Capitol. I'm talking about what I saw from outside of the Capitol. In the Capitol, one person died. That person was shot by the police, didn't bring a gun to shoot the police. Okay, this was not an insurrection. All right, it was stupid actions and some taking out anger by a few people, probably about 30 people that I saw that were actually taking out anger on the police, like pushing and shoving them. But there was no actual insurrection acts going on here. It was just some people being pretty stupid, and others trying to rile them up to be stupid, who may or may not have been MAGA supporters. The point is, out of millions of MAGA supporters, there may have been 100 or so that did stupid things on January 6th. And you're going to paint all of, you say you don't want to paint with a broad brush, it's not all Republicans who are MAGA supporters, but it's all MAGA supporters who wanted to storm the Capitol. Well, that's not true. I can tell you from being there and watching that is 100% not true. I was in the crowd, I was interviewing people, I was talking to people, and they were like, what's going on? What are they doing? What, are they going in the Capitol? What are they, stupid? What are they, are they attacking? Like, this is the attitude of the people, like, what are these people doing, right? So there were some people who were doing stupid things, but that's not all MAGA. Like, absolutely not. That's kind of silly. But no, now it is, because why? Because again, Biden is the person who stands to gain the most from tearing down Trump, and the least from Trump succeeding, right? He's going to be hurt the most from Trump succeeding. So Biden is not a non-biased source here. He is the most biased person in the world to speak about Trump and Trump supporters. He's the one who stands to gain the most from Trump failing, right? So I mean, I'm not a huge Trump supporter. I voted for him. I would prefer Ron DeSantis, honestly. I'm just not. I'm not a Trump supporter. I'm just saying the things that Biden is saying are false. They're just categorically, absolutely false, and actually apply more to Democrats than they do to Republicans.
But they look at them as patriots, and they see their MAGA failure to stop a peaceful transfer of power after the 2020 election as preparation for the 2022 and 2024 elections.
What? What this tells me is that it sounds to me like Democrats are planning to do violence in the name of MAGA, no matter what happens. If anytime a Democrat wins, they're going to do violence in the name of MAGA, right? Put MAGA hats on and go out and do violent stuff so that it looks like, oh, these guys are terrible. There may be terrible people who are Trump supporters. As a matter of fact, I'm sure there are. I'm 100% sure there are. But there are terrible people who call themselves Christians. There are terrible people who call themselves Democrats. There are terrible, terrible people all over in every corner of this world. All right, but it's kind of silly to paint with such a brush, and it's actually alienating and divisive, not unifying and helpful, Mr. President.
They tried everything last time to nullify the votes of 81 million people.
Yeah, 81 million people. 81 million. This is their problem, right? How the heck did 81 million people want to vote for this guy? Like, how is that? Like, this is the biggest thing, the biggest hurdle to jump over. Like, this is, like, really? Okay, well, but here's the thing. MAGA people don't want to nullify votes. They want an investigation to see if those votes were real. That's what they want. That's what they want. And if you had given it to them, they wouldn't be concerned about it today. But they are concerned about it because it was never given. They don't want to nullify. That's not their desire, right? That's a straw man. That is not the desire of the MAGA Republicans. Their desire is to have a free election. They just feel like it wasn't a fair election, right? So satisfy that concern, right? That's what you need to do. You don't not just tell them that they're wrong to be concerned about it, right? That's not helpful, Mr. President. What would be helpful is to satisfy that concern by having an open, honest investigation into it. You know, that would be helpful. This is not helpful.
This time, they're determined to succeed in thwarting the will of the people. That's why respected conservatives like Federal Circuit Court Judge Michael Ludwig has called Trump and the extreme MAGA Republicans, quote, a clear and present danger to our democracy. But while the threat to American democracy is real, I want to say as clearly as we can, we are not powerless in the face of these threats. We are not bystanders in this ongoing attack on democracy. There are far more Americans from every background and belief who reject the extreme MAGA ideology than those that accept it.
Now, there are more Americans who would not call themselves MAGA than those who would, right? But to reject the MAGA ideology, you sort of have to define what MAGA ideology is, right? If it is making America great again, conservatism, like that's pretty well accepted. If you call it conservatism, there's less people who would say they accept it. But if you define it and say that, you know, hey, look, we want to go back to the founding of the country, we want to, you know, want this to be a government of the people, by the people, for the people, that kind of stuff. People generally accept that. As a matter of fact, Biden is actually showing that they accept that by standing for this speech in front of Independence Hall, talking about how great the Constitution is. This is the ideology of conservatives, of the right. So, you know, by and large, they reject it. They don't reject the things that you've just said. The things that you're complaining at the MAGA for. They don't reject them just because they're your political opponent, Biden. Sorry.
And folks, it's within our power, it's in our hands, yours and mine, to stop the assault on American democracy. I believe America is at an inflection point. One of those moments that determine the shape of everything that's to come after. And now, America must choose to move forward or to move backwards, to build a future or obsess about the past.
Should we really move forward in the direction we're going, though? That's the question. Like, I feel like moving a couple years backwards would be super helpful. How many people feel like their life was better before 2020 than it is now? I mean, everyone thinks that. Nobody thinks the other way. So why are you talking about going forward? Why aren't you talking about restoring, going back? He's talking about, oh, MAGA Republicans want to go backwards. That's a pretty good thing. That sounds pretty good. Forward isn't always good, right? Now, get this. Biden wants to go backwards, too. He wants to go back to an age when Roe versus Wade is still in effect. He doesn't want to go forward into without, not having Roe versus Wade. He actually wants now laws to be made to basically reinstate Roe versus Wade. He wants the Congress to pass abortion laws. He wants to go backwards, right? You see, the word backward and forward can be used on both sides, right? The question is, what's actually better for the country? It's not whether it's backward or forward, but backward sounds bad, so it's being used here in the speech. It's all just political jargon to try to get you to agree with one thing or another.
To be a nation of hope and unity and optimism, or a nation of fear, division, and of darkness. MAGA Republicans have made their choice. They embrace anger. They thrive on chaos.
They embrace anger. Literally, this entire speech sounds angry to me. This whole thing. Democrats are the ones who supported chaos in 2020 when they said that, oh, it's a fiery but mostly peaceful protest. These protests should be, they should be allowed to continue. They're just expressing their anger. Who really wants chaos? Well, It's the people who are not in power who want chaos against the people who are in power. This kind of goes both ways, but I think it's a whole lot less in the Republican side than it is in the Democrat side.
We live not in the light of truth, but in the shadow of lies. But together we can choose a different path.
Together, this is one of the most divisive speeches I have ever heard in my entire life. Now, I'm not exactly an extremely old person, but this is like the most divisive speech I've ever heard. And he's talking about, but if we can only be together, you are literally dividing the country right now, saying that everyone who supported Trump is a MAGA guy who wanted to storm the Capitol, when almost everyone who supported Trump did not storm the Capitol. Millions of people voted for Trump. Only about 100 of them tried to get into the Capitol. And even those people didn't hurt anybody. Didn't hurt a single soul. Damaged a little property. It was bad. Shoved around some police. That's wrong. They shouldn't have done that. But they didn't hurt anyone. Right? And you're trying to then paint all millions of people who like Trump as terrible insurrectionists because 100 people did something really stupid and really wrong that didn't hurt anybody. Yeah, I'm sorry. That doesn't fly. That narrative doesn't actually make logical sense. Yeah, there's no logic there.
We can choose a better path forward to the future.
Because if the future is anything like now, or more of what we have now, I don't want to go to the future. I'd rather go to the past. To be honest with you, I'd much rather go backwards. I don't see why that would be a problem. Why is it bad to go backwards?
Future, a possibility, a future to build and dream and hope.
Yeah, you're going to have a lot of building to do. Building back better, what you're doing is you're tearing down more. This whole building, we're in the future, we have more to build. Yeah, because you've just been tearing stuff down for the last 2 years. All right. Yeah, let's just let him continue.
And we're on that path moving ahead.
Are we?
I know this nation. I know you, the American people. I know your courage. I know your hearts. And I know our history. This is a nation that honors our Constitution. We do not reject it.
Yeah, that is like the rallying cry of the conservatives. You've already talked about MAGA conservatives. Conservatives, that is what they're all about. The Constitution, returning to the Constitution, going backwards. You're talking about going forward instead of backwards to the Constitution and saying, oh, but we love the Constitution. You just can't use the Constitution to say we love the Constitution. You actually have to know it. In what way do you support the Constitution? You're against the Second Amendment. You're against the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. You're against all the principles of the Constitution and saying, yeah, but we're the Constitution. You can't. The Democrats are not the party of the Constitution. Like, everybody knows that. And you really can't pull the wool over our eyes there, Mr. Biden. Guys, we're going to wrap it up for this episode. If you're watching on FISM TV, that's all the time we have for this episode. But we're not done. Let's see. I've got about 15 more minutes of the speech. I don't know how much we'll get through, but we're going to try to do it, wrap it up in the next episode, just do 3 episodes on this, but we will see. I really just want to wade through this. I think this is helpful. So we'll see you next time on FISM. Everyone else, we're going to carry over and continue the discussion. All right, so if you're just joining us back here on FISM, thank you for joining us for the 3rd episode of this series where we're walking through the speech that Biden gave, the really creepy, dystopian, authoritarian speech at Independence Hall last week. And I just think this is super educational to actually think through the points that are being made in this speech. Because these speeches the goal is to be emotional. Like, that's the goal of these speeches. We've got to instead be careful, logical, and think through these things. And I think that will turn out to our benefit in a great way. All right, so let's go back to the speech. So far, he's been saying that Republicans, MAGA Republicans, are a danger because they hate the Constitution. They hate the rule of law. They want to undermine the election. Again, as I've said, if any of that's true, it is that they question the results of the election. But the reason they question it is because there's good reason to question it, even though there's no evidence to say the election was stolen. There's a lot of reason to think it could have been, and no investigation to find out whether it really was. And so that is a concern for Trump supporting Republicans who want to make America great again. And if an investigation had taken place or would take place, it would really calm a lot of those concerns. But Biden, the guy, the man of unity, doesn't seem interested in going that route. So it be what it be. All right, let's continue the speech, see how far we can get on it.
This is a nation that believes in the rule of law. We do not repudiate it.
Unless you're a Democrat, where, Black Lives Matter can go and just destroy things. And how dare Trump send the FBI out there to stop them, right? How dare Trump send the military out there to guard federal buildings when Black Lives Matter is destroying stuff, right? How dare he do that? Because, the Democrats are the party of the rule of law since when? Like, that is absolutely not true. Nobody believes this stuff. Nobody believes the Democrats are a party of the rule of law. But I think Biden here is trying to flip the narrative. He's trying to flip it around and trying to steal the momentum that's clearly not in his favor. And I don't know. I just feel like if he wanted to do that, the dystopian, hellish landscape behind him is not helping. Just not helping with that narrative that he's trying to spin.
This is a nation that respects free and fair elections. We honor the will of the people. We do not deny it.
Well, yeah, okay. The position, again, this is a straw man. The position of Trump supporters is that they feel that the election was stolen. They don't feel like this is the will of the people. They're not trying to deny the will of the people. If this was the will of the people, they wouldn't have an issue. Their concern is that it wasn't the will of the people. So calm that concern, because that is what they're not trying to just steal an election. They're afraid that an election has been stolen, and that's why they're so worried about this, right? So you want to calm them down, then what you need to do is do an investigation to calm them down. I'm not saying the election was stolen. I'm just saying that's how you deal with people who have a concern about the election being stolen. You don't just come out and say, oh, they're terrible for having concerns. No, you would say, okay, well, we're going to calm that concern by doing a full investigation into this, open, transparent, so you can see exactly that there is nothing going on here. But, of course, that's really not something he wants to do.
And this is a nation that rejects violence as a political tool. We do not encourage violence. We are still an America that believes in honesty and decency and respect for others. Patriotism, liberty, justice for all, hope, possibilities. We are still, at our core, a democracy. And yet...
All right. This is a nation... This is a nation that rejects violence as a political tool. Yeah, I agree that it's not a political tool, but this is a nation that started when we refused the orders of the king, and things got pretty violent. Okay, I'm just saying that, right? There was a war that started this nation. So you're standing in front of Independence Hall, where they literally were going to be hanged for writing this Declaration of Independence, and they knew that writing it meant absolute war with England, and they did it anyway. So no, I'm not advocating for any kind of. I'm just saying that doesn't make sense. Like, that's not logical. Oh, we're a nation that never participates in violence. No, we have an army. We fought to start the nation. We fought to protect our nation. Like, there's always violence in our nation. There always has been. This is how nations work. This is how governments work. So that's a little silly. He also says, let me see if I can back this up just a little bit so I can get that again. Let me pull it back up here.
In honesty and decency and respect for others. patriotism, liberty, justice for all, hope, possibilities. We are still, at our core, a democracy.
We're not really a democracy, right? We are a democratic republic, meaning that we vote to elect representatives who represent us. And then they make the laws, right? And they take care of the government. Democracy would be we vote about everything. Republic would be people are selected for us. We are a democratic republic, meaning we vote to select the representatives who go and do all the work for us, right? So we're not a democracy. We're not a republic. We are a democratic republic. That's actually really important. So that's the way it was designed on purpose. That's how it was designed by the people who stood in the building behind you at Independence Hall. And no, we're not still at our core a democracy. No. Although there is democracy as part of our government. There's no question about that.
And yet, history tells us that blind loyalty to a single leader and a willingness to engage in political violence is fatal to democracy.
Blind loyalty to a single leader and willingness to participate in violence is fatal to democracy. Well, okay. Blind loyalty to a single leader, if it's the will of the people, is still democratic. It's democracy. If that's what they want, if the people choose a leader that they are blindly loyal to, that's not fatal to democracy. That's democracy. That's what happens in a democracy. In a democracy, you're going to have people who are sometimes stupid, and when the majority of the people are stupid, they choose stupid leaders. This happens. This is what happens to a democracy. It falls when the people fall. So, still, it's not fatal to democracy. That is democracy. It's part of democracy. Being willing to participate in violence. Well, again, our founding fathers behind, in the building behind you, were willing to participate in violence. I'm not saying we should be. I'm just saying that's just not actually true, right? I'm not trying to say that we should be violent. As Christians, we should not be violent. Christianity says we are not going to participate in violence against our government. We'd rather our government kill us than participate in violence against our government. Now, if our government, like our local government, our state, were to rise up against the federal government, then we could decide which government we're going to follow, and we could fight in that war if they were, for instance, in the Civil War, right? In the Civil War, brothers fought against brother. That was, from a Christian perspective, that was permissible, even though they were fighting against government because they were following a government, right? So, I'm just saying, from a Christian perspective, we don't endorse rising against government. We don't endorse that from a Christian perspective. I don't believe that's found in Scripture, right? I'm just saying, this is what the founders did. The founders said, all right, we have a local government here. We have a government over there in England. We're going to follow our local government, our local charters, and we're going to, as a government here, stand against Great Britain. But even they didn't want to do individual rising against the government. No, it was, look, our government here, we're going to form a government here, and it's going to rise against. So, yeah, these types of things happen. So this doesn't really make a whole lot of sense as far as who we are as Americans and who he's representing. It's not fatal to democracy for there to be a willingness to participate in violence. If it's defense of democracy takes violence. I mean, that's why we have a military. So it doesn't make a lot of sense.
For a long time, we told ourselves that American democracy is guaranteed, but it's not. We have to defend it, protect it.
With violence? With violence, we have to do, because violence is fatal to democracy, right? No, defense is part of violence. Defense can be violent. Violent defense is part of love, actually. If I love my wife and someone breaks into my home and is trying to rape and kill her, I will be violent because I love them. And that will be defense. There'll be defense, right? So defense is part of violence.
Stand up for it, each and every one of us. That's why tonight I'm asking our nation to come together, unite behind the single purpose of defending our democracy regardless of your ideology.
Unless it's the ideology of the MAGAs, because that's what we're doing. That's what he's saying is we're going to defend our democracy against those who support Trump. No matter what your ideology is, you have to at least hate Trump supporters. That's crazy. From the man who stands to benefit politically the most from taking down Trump. He's telling everybody, we have to stand against Trump. Everyone in this country has to stand against my political opponent. That's creepy, and that's scary. That's not how that's not how an American president should be speaking. Like, for the sake of our country, we all have to band together and stand against the guy I hate, the guy who's my political opponent. Yeah, that's pretty creepy. That's pretty creepy to hear that come out of his voice.
All call by duty and
Oh, by the way, there's you see on the screen there are 7 people and a lot of empty chairs and a few people behind them that are taking pictures. 7 people in that shot. So that's a nice shot to show how big the audience is.
conscience to confront extremists who put their own pursuit of power above all else. Democrats, independents, mainstream Republicans. We must be stronger, more determined, and more committed to saving American democracy than MAGA Republicans are to destroying American democracy.
So MAGA Republicans are not committed to destroying American democracy in their minds, whether they're right or wrong. I'm not talking about their ideology, whether it's right or wrong right now. Okay, I'm just saying, in their minds, they are trying to preserve democracy, right? And you haven't really addressed that at all, Joe. You're ignoring that, being divisive instead of unifying, and trying to turn the entire country against your political opponent without actually addressing their concerns. So this is scary, wrong, and of course he has a appropriate background for this.
We, the people, will not let anyone or anything tear us apart. Today,
you're literally trying to tear people apart here, Biden. You're literally not listening to an entire segment of the population, 50% of the population practically, who voted against you. Actually, probably a lot more, but that's neither here nor there. The point is, you're not listening to a huge portion of the population that voted against you, and your approval rating is in the toilet, and you're saying, yeah, but we all need to, band together and hate the guy who opposes me. Why? MAGA Republicans didn't storm the Capitol. A few MAGA Republicans stormed the Capitol. But by and large, of the millions who were there, almost no, like 0.01% of the people there stormed the Capitol. So you can't just paint them all as bad because they stormed the Capitol. Oh, they won't accept their election results. Well, they have reason to think that there was cheating. We know there was some cheating. Was it enough to make a difference? We don't know because there was never an investigation done. So there's like, they have concerns about whether our elections were held appropriately. They are actually concerned about preserving free and fair elections. That's their concern. Whether they're right or wrong is not the issue. The point is that's their concern. So you're painting them as evil because they're concerned about the integrity of our elections. Like, that's not unifying. That's not saying, okay, you guys are concerned about this. We're going to do an investigation. We're going to prove it to you that this was all good. We're going to calm your concerns down. None of that. There's no olive branch. There's no look for unification. There's, y'all are wrong if you don't get behind and support me. And if you don't get behind to support me, then, we all need to band against you. Well, this is just not going to work, Joe. Your approval rating's in the toilet. This is just not going to work. People are not going to just get behind and support you because you say, if you don't, I'm going to sick the whole country on you, because most of the country doesn't support you, Joe.
There are dangers around us we cannot allow to prevail. We hear, you've heard it, more and more talk about violence as an acceptable political tool in this country. It's not. It can never be an acceptable tool. So I want to say this plain and simple. There is no place for political violence in America, period. None, ever.
ever. I mean, this is how the country started. Again, the Christian view is not political violence. That's not the Christian view. That's not the Christian perspective. We're not for insurrections or anything like that. But that is how the country started, right? So let's not be, ridiculous about this. Okay. Yes. Like, there is a place for it in America. That's how America began. Literally, you're standing in front of an Independence Hall where a very violent proclamation was made. And people signing that knew that they would die. And many of them did die for signing the Declaration of Independence. They knew that they were starting a war. There was political violence that was taking place. By the way, who was encouraging people to picket outside of the homes of the Supreme Court members when they found out that they were going to rule on against overturning Roe versus Wade? Like, who was encouraging that? That was the Democrats. Oh, but there's no place for political violence. I agree. There isn't a place for political violence, at least not in the mind of a Christian. A Christian should always follow their government, even if it kills them, unless they're, of course, told to do something against the Lord. And that's a separate issue. I don't think that's happened yet. But to say that there's no place to ever, I mean, like, look, what about Nazi Germany? Was there a place for violence there? I mean, should people have stood up and said, no, I'm not going to kill those Jews? No, I'm not going to turn in those Jews? Yeah, I mean, obviously there is, like, extreme scenarios where violence is good. And if those scenarios ever came to America, obviously we would want that to not happen, right? I mean, so this is painting with a broad brush in order to try to make it look like there's this terrible thing going on. I don't know of MAGA Republicans. I don't know. And I do know many of them. I'm not one. I wouldn't consider myself one. I do know many of them. I don't know any of them who want to start an insurrection. None. Zero. Maybe there are. I'm sure there are. There are some in every camp. But I don't know any that do. So.
We saw law enforcement brutally attacked on January the 6th.
Brutally attacked? I mean, yeah, they got pushed around a little bit. The only person who died was a Trump supporter, shot by law enforcement. Well, she was in a place she shouldn't have been. Absolutely. So I don't feel like she should have been shot. But look, she was where she wasn't supposed to be. That was wrong of her. Not her, but other men on January 6th were pushing and shoving the police. And that was wrong. They shouldn't have done that. I told people, I was there filming it as a journalist, and I told people, don't do that. Don't do it. Don't shove the police. This is not right. This is not okay, guys. Plus, it's really stupid. Those guys have guns and you don't. I mean, don't do this. And a couple people did. I probably saw about a total of 30 people pushing police around. That's not brutally attacking, okay? That's not really what happened, all right?
We've seen election officials, poll workers, many of them volunteers of both parties, subject to intimidation and death threats. And can you believe it?
Well, I mean, you were death threatening, the Democrats were death threatening our Supreme Court justices. So, I mean, tit for tat, I guess, give and take. I'm not saying it's okay. I'm just saying, look, this happens. This is part of politics. To make this huge evil, this one big evil in America as someone who's doing the same thing that you do, it seems pretty hypocritical there, Joe.
FBI agents just doing their job as directed, facing threats to their own lives from their own fellow citizens. On top of that, there are public figures today, yesterday, and the day before predicting and all but calling for mass violence and rioting in the streets. This is inflammatory. It's dangerous. It's against the rule of law. And we, the people, must say, this is not who we are.
Calling for violence in the streets. Democrats have literally said, if you find one of those people from the Trump cabinet, you better go out there, you better scream at him, you better yell at him, we need violence. I mean, this is the things that Democrats actually said about Trump supporters. And this is not who we are. Well, no, it is wrong. You're absolutely right. That's wrong. I don't know any MAGA people who are, calling for violence. I don't know of any. None. I really don't know of any. If you know some, let me know. I'm against that. But I do know of a lot of Democrats who've done that. Maxine Waters. I mean, look, this is very common among Democrats to call for violence against their political opponent. You're right. It's not who we should be, but it kind of unfortunately is who we are, and I'm very sad to say that.
Ladies and gentlemen, we can't be pro-insurrectionists.
Just say it, Bo. Just say it there.
And pro-American. They're incompatible. We can't allow violence to be normalized in this country. It's wrong.
Pro-resurrectionists and pro-America. Like, the founding fathers were resurrectionists. I mean, the Christian perspective is not to be resurrection. Resurrection. Yeah, we are going to have resurrection. Insurrection. Okay. I'm having a Joe Biden moment here, guys. The Christian position is not to be insurrectionist. Absolutely not. I'm not. This is wrong, guys. Don't do that. Don't do that. Don't do that. All right. But, that's not who we are. I mean, that's kind of how we started, right? Isn't it? That's why he's standing in front of the Independence Hall, isn't it?
We each have to reject political violence with all the moral clarity and conviction this nation can muster. Now, we can't let the integrity of our elections be undermined, for that is a path to chaos. Look, I know politics can be fierce and mean and nasty in America. I get it. I believe in the give and take of politics, in disagreement and debate and dissent. We're a big, complicated country. But democracy endures only if we, the people, respect the guardrails of the republic. Only if we, the people, accept the results of free and fair elections. Only if we, the people, see politics not as total war, but mediation of our differences. Democracy cannot survive when one side believes there are only two outcomes to an election.
Yeah, so that's what Democrats are known for, right? Politics to Democrats is mediation of differences. We just want to come together. Yeah, we want to just mediate our differences. No, that's not how Democrats see politics. It's only MAGA Republicans see politics as total war. I mean, no, listen. There's no side in politics thinks that this is about mediating differences. It probably would be a better way to look at it in many cases. But honestly, if something's wrong, it's wrong. And I don't want a mediation. I want it to... Look, if abortion is wrong and it's murder, then it's murder. I don't want a mediation of differences. I want murder to be outlawed, right? And that's what democracy is about. We are voting because we have an opinion on subjects, and we want that opinion to be represented in the Congress, right? That's why we vote. So, no, it's not just a MAGA thing.
Either they win or they were cheated. And that's where the MAGA Republicans are today.
That's not where they are. That's not what they think. They are concerned that it wasn't fair. They're actually concerned about that because they're not sure if there will ever be free elections again. That's their concern. Now, I can't calm that concern down. I can't tell them, oh no, it was free and fair. All I can say is, yeah, I guess there's some good reason to think it's possible that it was, that it wasn't fair. If there was an investigation into this, we would know. We don't know. So sadly, that concern hasn't been resolved for a lot of the MAGA people. Okay? That just is what it is. That's the case. If you want to fix the problem, you're going to have to do an investigation.
They don't understand what every patriotic American knows. You can't love your country only when you win. It's fundamental.
Oh, just forget all the Democrats who said that if Trump won, they were going to move to Canada, right? Just forget all that.
Choose to respect the rule of law and the institutions that were set up in this chamber behind me. Only if we respect our legitimate political differences. I will not stand by and watch. I will not. The will of the American people be overturned by wild conspiracy theories and baseless evidence-free claims of fraud. I will not stand by and watch elections in this country stolen by people who simply refuse to accept that they lost.
Yeah, we kind of covered that. Kind of covered that a lot already, so I'm not going to respond to that again.
The most fundamental freedom in this country, the freedom to vote and have your vote counted and be taken from you and the American people. Look.
By the way, it's not actually the most fundamental freedom in our country, the freedom to vote. The most fundamental freedom is life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Right? The freedom to vote is not the most fundamental freedom in our country. As a matter of fact, when our country was originally founded, not everyone had the freedom to vote. That was just like the people who signed the Declaration of Independence behind you there, Joe. They didn't think that that was a fundamental freedom for every person. They just didn't think so. They thought the people who were invested, the people who were landowners in the country, those were the people who should be voting. It should not be every single person, people who aren't paying taxes, people who aren't invested in the future of the country shouldn't be part of the voting, of the people voting. So that wasn't their concern. Their concern wasn't everyone has to vote. Their concern was the people who are paying the money and are paying the taxes and who are the landowners and all that, those are the people who should have a say in the government that they're paying for. Right? If they're funding the government, they should have a say in it. That was really the goal. That's why, by the way, whether it's right or wrong, that's why women weren't given the right to vote. It was head of household, because it was like, well, you all own property, so you get together and decide for that property who's the voter. Right? The head of household. So that's the reason, right? That's sort of the mindset that they have, whether right or wrong, right? It's just not what Biden wants you to think. He's rewriting history and trying to tell you this is normal. It's not. It's really not how history has been throughout all of time. So this is not what he's at all. The picture that he's trying to paint is absolutely not true. All right. Well, welcome back. If you're watching on FISM TV, we are continuing our coverage of Joe Biden's speech, and so far it's been abysmally bad. So far, we've kind of gone through the majority of the speech, but over the last 3 episodes, this is the 4th episode, and definitely the last. I'm not going to do another one on the speech. It'll get old, but I'm trying to point out, first of all, the speech is rather creepy. His sort of has this hellish red background with these 2 guards standing behind him, and only about, probably, I'm estimating about 60 or 70 people in the audience that you can see in the camera, and he's talking about, it seems to me like he's setting up this great crisis, right? Because why let a crisis go to waste? He's setting up a great crisis that he's going to solve. The crisis is those who support Trump. Trump supporters are the problem. MAGA Trump supporters, he says. Trump supporters are the big problem in America, and we have to band together to stop this problem. Trump supporters support violence, he says. They won't accept the results of an election. They won't. They are for insurrection. All this. This is just simply not the case, right? Trump supporters, while there were some of them who stormed the Capitol, they didn't do so violently, except pushing and shoving some police officers. The millions of people there, almost none of them, only about maybe 100 or so of them, actually tried to storm the Capitol. Most of them then stood by peacefully, doing nothing, right? Just saying, what's going on, right? Didn't even know what was going on, most of them. So they're not for insurrection. This is not the position of people who support Trump. There might be a few of them who do, but that's very, very rare. It's not a big problem. Obviously, it's a serious problem if there are those who believe that, but you know, it's not a popular problem. They aren't against free and fair elections. They in their minds, they feel that the election wasn't fair, right? And so, you know, I know that you do feel that it was fair, Joe, or at least you want us to think that you feel that it was fair, but they feel that it was not. So the problem here is that their concerns haven't been addressed and you say, well, there's no proof to say that it was not fair. Well, there is some evidence to indicate that that it's possible that it was not fair, right? And that has caused a lot of concern for Trump supporters, right? What needs to happen is there needs to be an investigation that shows that, okay, this was fair, and that will really calm most of this. And that would be the best way to address this, Joe. If you really want to unify, you say, all right, we're going to do an investigation into this, calm your nerves about this, because I know what you guys want is a free and fair election, and I appreciate your passion for this. However, we're going to show you that this was true. So we're going to go ahead and do an investigation. That would be great. That would be the way to answer this. And he's not going to do that. So instead, he's going to paint everyone who's concerned about free and fair elections as people who are against free and fair elections, right? So he's kind of trying to flip the narrative. Anyway, that's what's happened so far. Here's him as he continues his speech. We're getting there. We're almost done. All right, here we go.
Throughout our history, America's often made the greatest progress coming out of some of our darkest moments, like you're hearing that bullhorn.
So he's got about 70 people in front of him. He's not like a big crowd. And you can hear off in the distance a protest to Biden. Somebody on a bullhorn. And by the way, protesting is a beautiful, wonderful part of American history and American democracy. Like, this is a beautiful, glorious part of our history. The fact that protesting takes place. This is just great, guys. This is really good stuff. Protesting, right? Peaceful protesting, right? But this is how women got the right to vote, right? All throughout history, we've protested the abortion industry. And hey, look, we finally brought awareness to problems. You bring awareness to problems by protest. This is a wonderful, good thing. And Democrats have participated in it many times. But here, Biden is saying that we have come through the darkest moments in our history, like the bullhorn. The darkest moments in our history are people who protest? No, that's a wonderful part of American history, protesting.
Throughout our history, America's often made the greatest progress coming out of some of our darkest moments, like you're hearing from that bullhorn.
Our darkest moments, like you're hearing from that bullhorn. Do you realize that in Independence Hall, where President Biden is, when he's giving the speech, right behind him, they wrote the Declaration of Independence, and they wrote the Constitution. In the Constitution, what do they say? The right of the people to assemble and to petition the government for redress of grievances shall not be infringed. Like, what that guy's doing is wonderful, is exactly the democracy that those people in Independence Hall wanted to create. They wanted to create a democracy that could be challenged. They wanted to create a government that could be challenged by the people. The power should not all be in the presidency. And here's the president with the red glow and the guards, and he's saying, this is the darkness that's challenging our country. It is those who stand against me and shout at me with a bullhorn. No, that's a wonderful part of our country. Whether a Republican or Democrats in office, we should always have protesting. This is a good thing. Now, peaceful, right? Peaceful protesting, absolutely. But protesting, it's a wonderful thing. It's a wonderful part of our democracy.
I believe we can and must do that again. And we are. MAGA Republicans look at America and see carnage and darkness and despair. They spread fear and lies.
No, they want to make America great again. America was certainly better before Joe Biden became president. There's really no doubt about that. I mean, America has definitely gone down. Whether it's Joe Biden's fault, Joe Biden would obviously argue that it's not, but there's no question that America was better before he became president. So, you see darkness, right, and despair. Joe Biden in this speech has been giving us all this darkness and gloom and despair about the MAGA Republicans. So, but all they can do is paint people with this evil brush. That's exactly what you're doing, President Joe. Like, this is exactly what you're doing, is painting people with an evil brush.
Lies told for profit and power.
Now, I've already detailed many of the lies and mischaracterizations that Biden has told for profit and power in this speech. Listen, he has the most to gain from Trump from everyone in the country turning against Trump, and he has the most to lose from everyone in the country turning to Trump, right? This guy is the least unbiased voice on this matter. Oh, but they're telling lies for profit and power. Literally, you have power and profit if you can get everybody to turn against Trump. Like, that's wonderfully power, gives you a lot more ability to retain your power. So this seems to fall on deaf ears coming from the guy who stands to benefit the most from attacking his political opponent. I mean, he's calling for attacks, for turning against his political opponent here. With words that say, "Oh, but they're using lies to gain power." Besides the fact that, of course, the Biden family has always used power. We know this for a fact. Has always used power to sort of increase their profit margin. Hunter Biden is a good example of that. But Trump, on the other hand, when he got to the presidency, he didn't get more money. He actually lost a lot of money. He didn't take a paycheck. I mean, it was not about money, right? Profit. Matter of fact, he lost a lot of profit doing that. So there at least we can say that wasn't his motive.
But I see a different America. An America with an unlimited future. An America that's about to take off. I hope you see it as well. Just look around.
Well, I hope it's about to take off, because the last 2 years has been going down, right? We are careening towards a cliff, and we don't think it take off soon. It looks pretty bad. So I really hope that it is about to take off. I really do, Joe. I honestly do. But the policies that you've implemented, there's no logical reason to think that the policies you've implemented will help America take off. None. None of your policies. All of your policies have been towards, like, green energy and leftist ideas that aren't designed to make America take off. They're designed to rein America in. So the idea that America is about to take off, if it does, it would be in spite of your policies. Your policies aren't designed, Joe, to make America take off.
I believe we could lift America from the depths of COVID. So we passed the largest economic recovery package since Franklin Delano Roosevelt. And today, America's economy is faster, stronger than any other advanced nation in the world. We have more to go. I believe we could build a better America. So we passed the biggest infrastructure investment since President Dwight D. Eisenhower. And we've now embarked on a decade of rebuilding the nation's roads, bridges, highways, ports, water systems, high-speed internet, railroads.
These are all things, by the way, that Trump did
So
or
we passed the
wanted
most
to do.
significant gun safety law since President Clinton. I believe.
Which is actually against the Constitution, after talking about how the MAGA guys are against the Constitution. So, don't pay any attention to that.
We could go from being the highest cost of prescriptions in the world to making prescription drugs and health care more affordable. So we passed the most significant health care reform since President Obama signed the Affordable Care Act.
Okay, health care reform doesn't help reform the actual cost of prescription drugs. That's the problem. Prescription drug cost is the problem. And let's see, who dealt with that issue? I'm sorry, that was Trump. That was Trump who did that.
And I believe we could create a clean energy future and save the planet. So we passed the most important climate.
Saving the planet doesn't make America take off. So this has nothing to do. Already he's told us this actually has nothing to do with making America take off.
Initiative ever. As
a matter of fact, climate initiatives always rein America back in, saying you can't produce more than this certain amount of emissions and all that. Economically, climate things are actually going to hold us back economically. Whether they're good or not, I'm not talking about that right now. We've talked about that on other places of the show. I'm just saying, economically they're bad for the country economically.
The cynics and the critics tell us nothing can get done, but they're wrong. There is not a single thing America cannot do, not a single thing beyond our capacity.
We agree, but just the policies you're enacting aren't going to help us do that.
But we're proving in America, no matter how long the road, progress does come.
Progress towards what, though? That's the really
Look, I know the last few years have been tough, but today, COVID no longer controls our lives. More Americans are...
So, see, COVID never controlled our lives. The government used COVID to control our lives, right? I mean, right? COVID never knocked on my door and said, "I'm sorry, sir, you can't go to work today because I'm here." No. The government said, "You can't go to work because COVID's here," right? COVID never controlled my life. The government did. And whether it was right or wrong, shifting and, trying to shift the blame here, the control of our lives was not done by COVID. It was done by the government.
Working than ever. Businesses are growing. Our schools are open. Millions of Americans have been lifted out of poverty. Millions of veterans once exposed to...
Yeah, tell that to the most liberal state in the country, California, where they literally have the homeless overrunning the state. If Americans are being lifted out of poverty, it is not the result of liberal policies. Everywhere, the most liberal places in the country, everywhere where liberalism is just unchecked and unfettered, you have the most poverty in the country. I mean, it looks like a third world country where liberalism is left go unchecked. So, I mean, this is not something that can be credited to liberal policies, Democrat policies.
The toxic burn pits will now get what they deserve for their families and the compensation. American manufacturers come alive across the heartland, and the future will be made in America.
I mean, that'd be good, right? That would be wonderful if that's the case. I'm suspicious that will not be the case based on the policies, but we don't have time to get into all that. So,
no matter what the white supremacists and the extremists say, I made a bet on you, the American people, and that bet is paying off, proving that from darkness, the darkness of Charlottesville, of COVID, of gun violence, of insurrection, we can see the light. Light is now visible.
Why? Why? Because you said so? Because light is visible? What about the what about the darkness of the Black Lives Matter race riots? I mean, of course, Christians believe that Black Lives Matter. I mean, Christians believe that there's no difference between men and women based on their color, right? That has nothing to do with the love of God for them or their value as a human being. But what about the race riots that came from that argument? Is that something that we're seeing the light from? I mean, what about all the darkness that has come on this land that is real, serious darkness from leftists? How about the fact that it was a transgender leftist who shot up the last school down in Texas? How about the fact that the police weren't allowed to go in? I mean, Republicans hate this. MAGA supporters hate this. They're not for that, right? I mean, I don't think people are seeing progress in America. I think that is an out of touch statement by Joe Biden. I don't think that's what we're seeing.
Light that will guide us forward, not only in words but in actions. Actions for you, for your children, for your grandchildren, for America. Even in this moment, with all the challenges we face, I give you my word as a Biden, I've never been more optimistic about America's future.
Your word as a Biden, is that your word as a Biden? What? The Biden family, like, we know this from and we could talk about this maybe on another episode, but we know that the Biden family is one of the most corrupt government cronies that have ever existed. Like, this is why there was no one really enthusiastic about him, even when he was running for president. My word as a Biden, dude, nobody thinks that that's incredibly special. It's not like the Biden name is known. It's the most honest name in the country. Come on.
Because of me, but because of who you are. We're going to end cancer as we know it. Mark my words.
Yeah, okay, all right. That's good, right? It'd be wonderful if we could end cancer. Trump wanted to do that. It didn't get done. Every president has wanted to end cancer, right? This is great. This is wonderful, right? If you could do it, go for it, right? I'm all for you. I will support you ending cancer, Joe. But are you really going to end cancer, Joe? Are you really think... like that? All right, so here's the deal, guys. If Joe Biden does not end cancer by the next election, then you should not vote for him because he's promised he's going to end cancer, and he lied. On his word as a Biden, he promised he's going to end cancer. On his word as a Biden. So he's definitely going to do it, guys.
We're going to create millions of new jobs in a clean energy economy. We're going to think big. We're going to make the 21st century another American century because the world needs us to.
You've been working to get America off the world stage and to downplay our influence in the world. And you're going to make the next century an American century. Yeah, that sounds great. It sounds conservative, what you're saying, Biden. But your policies are the direct opposite of that. So why should we think that you mean that?
That's where we need to focus our energy. Not in the past, not on divisive culture wars, not on the politics of grievance. But
you've literally been participating in the culture war in this speech. You literally said that, oh, they, you know, the MAGA Republicans, all they want is to take us backwards into no choice for women and you know, taking away abortion. You know, that's culture war. That's culture war stuff. Divisive culture war. This whole speech has been a divisive part of the culture war. So, yeah, that's that's a lie. You just said you didn't want it, and you just spent the last 20 minutes doing it.
In the future, we can build together. The MAGA Republicans believe that for them to succeed, everyone else has to fail.
No. No. MAGA means make America great again, Joe. So we believe just the opposite. We believe that we succeed when when the country succeeds. Like when we succeed, the MAGA idea is that when they succeed, when Trump succeeds, the whole country does well. It's not like, oh, they're going to succeed so everything else fails. That's not the view of the MAGA people, right? I'm not a MAGA person. I wouldn't call myself that. But I'm not against them either. So kind of try to be middle ground. I'm definitely conservative. And that's just not their view. That's not the view of the MAGA people.
They believe America is not like I believe about America. I believe America is big enough for all of us to succeed.
Somebody misread his teleprompter there. I believe America is big enough for all of us to succeed. Yeah, if America succeeds, it's good for all of us, which is why the MAGA people want to make America great again, right? Whether they're right or wrong on how to do that, them wanting to do that is not against that. That's not
and that is the nation we're building, a nation where no one is left behind. I ran for president because I believe we're in a battle for the soul of this nation. I still believe that to be true. I believe the soul is the breath, the life, and the essence of who we are. The soul is what makes us, us. The soul of America is defined by the sacred proposition that all are created equal in the image of God, that all are entitled to be treated with decency, dignity, and respect, that all deserve justice and a shot at lives of prosperity and consequence, and that democracy must be defended, for democracy makes all these things possible. Folks, and it's up to us. Democracy begins and will be preserved in we, the people's habits of the heart, in our character, optimism that is tested yet endures, courage that digs deep when we need it, empathy that fuels democracy, the willingness to see each other not as enemies but as fellow Americans.
Joe, you just spent the entire speech talking about how the enemies of America, are the people who support your political opponent. Like, those are the enemies of America. But we need to see each other not as enemies, guys. Not as enemies, but as fellow Americans, guys. We've got to come together. You just said that everyone who supports your political opponent, Trump, are the enemies of America. You know, not like you have anything invested in tearing down your political opponent. And then we got to come together and not see each other as enemies. That's funny. That's funny, Joe.
Look, our democracy isn't perfect. It always has been. Notwithstanding those folks you hear on the other side there, they're entitled to be outrageous. This is a democracy.
There we go. Okay, all right. I agree with that. They are entitled to say and do what they're saying and doing. But you are literally saying that they're like the enemy of democracy, but they're entitled to do that because it's a democracy. Well, which is it, Joe? Which one?
But history and common sense. Good manners is nothing they've ever suffered from. But history and common sense tell us that opportunity, liberty, and justice for all are most likely to come to pass in a democracy. We have never fully realized the aspirations of our
A democratic republic, not a democracy. But go ahead.
founding. But every generation has opened those doors a little bit wider to include more people who have been excluded before. My fellow Americans, America is an idea, the most powerful idea in the history of the world, and it beats in the hearts of the people of this country. It beats in all our hearts. It unites America. It is the American creed, the idea that America guarantees that everyone be treated with dignity. It gives hate no safe harbor. It installs in everyone the belief that no matter where you start in life, there's nothing you can't achieve. That's who we are. That's what we stand for. That's what we believe. And that's precisely what we're doing. Opening doors, creating possibilities, focusing on the future. And we're only just beginning. Our task is to make our nation free and fair, just and strong, noble and whole. And this work is the work of democracy, the work of this generation. It is the work of our time, for all time. We can't afford to leave anyone on the sidelines. We need everyone to do their part. So speak up, speak out, get engaged, vote, vote, vote. And if we do our duty, in 2022 and beyond, then ages still to come will say, we, all of us here, we kept the faith. We preserved democracy. We heeded our worst. We heeded not our worst instincts, but our better angels. We proved that for all its imperfections.
Oh, Joe, you're doing so good. Oh, man, that was like super motivating there, man. And then couldn't read the teleprompter. Oh, man, just when you sounded like, you knew what you were talking about.
The beacon to the world, an ideal to be realized, a promise to be kept. There's nothing more important, nothing more sacred, nothing more American. That's our soul. That's who we truly are. And that's who we must always be. I have no doubt, none, that this is who we will be, and that we'll come together as a nation that will secure our democracy, that for the next 200 years, we'll have what we had the past 200 years, the greatest nation on the face of the earth. We just need to remember who we are. We are the United States of America.
Did he just say, for the next 200 years, we'll have what we had for the past 200 years? Did he say, did he just say that we want to make America great again? And not so many words. I think he kind of said that. Like, here's the thing. He's standing in front of by the way, that's the end of the speech, really. He's standing in front of Independence Hall because he wants to make America. He wants to have the image that he wants America to be the way that it was founded to be. He's literally saying that he wants America, you know, to be great again. I mean, not literally, but he's in so many words saying, I want America to be great again. But those MAGA people who want America to be great again, they want us to go backwards and not forwards. Well, you just said you want to go backwards. You're standing in front of Independence Hall. You're talking about the Constitution. Which is it? None of this makes sense. But unfortunately, Democrat voters are used to politicians who don't make sense and don't care to actually think through these things. Guys, Christians should be thinkers. We should think through these things. Be careful, be thinking. And that's all the time we have for today, guys. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time on Point of View.